Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 25, Blood Splattering the Skies. The experts within the metallic lifeform were all frowning. They felt annoyed at a god coming and begging them for help. How could they be bothered to pay attention to minor figures like this? "Save me," Linley said frantically, but his gaze pierced through the metallic lifeform, seeing the people within clearly. "If you stay here, we'll kill you," one of the 6 star fiends shouted angrily. "Ha ha, punk, you won't be able to escape." The group of bandits flew over as well. Only, they didn't dare to disturb the metallic lifeform, for fear that the experts within would vent their anger on them. "Let's go. Stop paying attention to them," the bald captain said calmly. Bang! Suddenly, the metallic lifeform blew apart violently. All of the experts within the metallic lifeform were immediately shocked into wakefulness, while at the same time an earthen yellow light spread out, encapsulating a spherical region with a diameter of 500 meters, Blackstone space. A powerful gravity that was pulling towards Linley. Whoosh, whoosh. The shattered metal scraps of the metallic lifeform flew out wildly towards Linley as well. During the explosion, everything was in a state of chaos, and none of the experts within the metallic lifeform had any idea what was going on. In particular, that bald captain. He saw, to his amazement, that a clawed hand covered with draconic scales had appeared in front of his eyes. Not good, the Azure Dragon clan. The bald captain only had enough time to be shocked and know what was about to happen. Slash. Linley's sharp claws moved as fast as lightning, piercing directly into the bald captain's head. Bang! The skull exploded, sending fresh blood flying everywhere and colliding with the shattered remnants of the metallic lifeform. A single high god spark fell into Linley's palm. In an instant, a 7-star fiend had died. This 7-star fiend really had died an unfair death. When Linley had flown next to the metallic lifeform's window, the distance between him and the captain was less than 5 or 6 meters. 5 or 6 meters, to experts on Linley's level. In but an instant, like the striking of a flint, he had killed the opponent. The only thing the 7-star fiend had done wrong was that he had not been on guard at all. He didn't suspect that the god who had been begging for help was actually a 7-star fiend. 1. Linley's dark golden eyes swept the people in front of him. Previously, he had seen everyone within the metallic lifeform, but was only able to tell that the bald person was apparently their leader. He couldn't tell what everyone else's position was. Thus, Linley's first target had been that man. Whoosh! Within the powerful gravitational field of the Blackstone space, the enemy experts frantically tried to resist the gravity, while at the same time, they discovered to their amazement that their captain had already been killed in an instant. "Captain!" Quite a few of the fiends called out in alarm. So he was their captain. Linley was overjoyed. His guess had been correct. By relying on a sneak attack, he had killed a 7-star fiend. Thus, he had accomplished more than half of this mission. Only now did those fiends understand. So he is an expert of the 4 Divine Beasts clan. They now noticed Linley's dragon-formed body. "Mr. Mosley." They hurriedly sent to the other 7-star fiend. Mosley was from the Ashcroft clan, and was specialized in soul attacks. He was the other 7-star fiend in this squad. As the captain, Cole, had already died, he naturally became the commander of these people. His ability to hide his aura was actually at such an amazing level. Mosley was amazed as well. Not even I was able to notice that he was actually a supreme expert. Mosley had been trapped into the same erroneous line of thinking. As he wasn't able to sense Linley's high god aura, he thus took Linley for someone whose ability to hide his aura was tremendously strong, and therefore as an expert who specialized in soul attacks. Given his ability to hide his aura, he must be an expert who specializes in soul attacks. Use material attacks to kill him. Mosley hurriedly ordered those 6 star fiends. Yes. The 6-star fiends immediately acknowledged. Boom! The terrifying energy wave spread out, and the 10 6-star fiends located 10 kilometers away from Linley instantly were shocked into wakefulness. Not long ago, they had just received the report from the intelligence agent, and so they have been on high alert this entire time. Battle. Their 10 faces all changed. Captain. Melina was frantic. Quick, attack. Shonda let out a low growl, and was the first to fly out, with the other 9 6-star fiends immediately charging out at high speed as well. Although they were more than 10 kilometers away, to 6-star fiends, that sort of distance could be traversed in a twinkling. Captain, you have to be able to hold. The 10 6-star fiends silently prayed as they moved. To traverse 10 kilometers, 6-star fiends only needed a second. However, a second, in a battle between supreme experts, was enough for many attacks to be exchanged. When 6-star fiends or 7-star fiends did battle, every 1,000th or 10,000th of a second, a person could die. Material attacks. All of the 6-star fiends, after receiving the order, trusted in Mosley's judgment. This was because they all knew that in the 4 Divine Beasts clan, the clan with the most powerful physical defense was the Black Tortoise clan, while the Azure Dragon clan's physical defense wasn't too powerful. Only those 3 famous figures amongst them had truly powerful bodies. But Linley clearly wasn't one of those 3, nor was he on the list of high-danger individuals that their intelligence reports had provided him. His body shouldn't be too tough. Not hesitating at all, the 6-star fiends all forcibly attempted to resist that gravitational pull while simultaneously attempting to launch their most powerful material attacks. Shattered metallic scraps flew out at high speed from within that blackstone space, and a white fog was beginning to spread out. It was like a phantom, a bizarre illusion. Swoosh! A completely translucent icy all tore through the air, shooting towards Linley. Harg! His clothes exploding, a muscular expert of the Barbary clan brandished a giant Isis word, the edge of the Isis word gleaming with light. Clutching that giant Isis word, he chopped down it with from mid-air in a dominating manner against Linley. Crackle! One slender icy needle after another shot out, translucent and thin, the size and shape of embroidery needles. If one wasn't paying special attention to them, one wouldn't even be able to see them clearly. Seeing this response from the enemies, the corner of Linley's lips curved upwards. The second one. Linley flew directly towards the man who was chopping down at him with that Isis word, completely ignoring the icy needles shooting at him from behind. With a series of crunch-crunch sounds, the icy needle struck Linley's draconic scales, then immediately disintegrated, leaving behind just some white residue on the scales. Not good. The 6-star fiends who were surrounding and attacking Linley couldn't help but have their faces change in worry. In particular, that man who was chopping downwards with his Isis word. His heart trembled. You won't be able to flee. A voice rang out in his mind. The 6-star fiend realized that a pair of dark golden eyes was staring at him. He could sense that astonishing gravitational pull, and knew that he wouldn't be able to escape. He let out a bellow. Die! The muscular man's face was savage, and as he bellowed, he chopped downwards with full force with his blade. Where the Isis word passed, voids in space appeared. Clearly, those were made from torn rips in space. Whoosh! A blur suddenly came chopping over. He only sensed that the air seemed to tremble, then explode. A draconic tail lashed viciously against his Isis word, and the terrifying power of that draconic tail was actually completely focused on the sword. The muscular man only felt his arms go numb, and the Isis word was sent flying away. Immediately afterwards, tears in the palm of his hand appeared, created by the shock of the impact, and blood flowed out. You can follow your captain now. The voice rang out in his mind. No. The muscular man roared angrily, his entire body instantly emitting streams of water that completely surrounded him. Whoosh! After whipping the ice's word aside, Linley's draconic tail whistled through the air as it shot backwards, slashing directly against the muscular man's head. It must be said that Linley's body was simply too powerful, and that his strength was simply too terrifying. Bang! A powerful tremor. The muscular man's head immediately exploded, and a divine spark fell out. Yet another 6-star fiend had died. That group of bandits just stared, slack-jawed, at this scene. Linley's Blackstone space was made in a way which specially focused his divine earth power against his opponents, and thus didn't have much of an impact on these bandits. After all, if he drew the bandits over, they'd just get in his way. The bandits all immediately flew out of the Blackstone space's range, but the battle that was going on above them caused them to be utterly dazed. The speed of this battle was too fast. The power was too terrifying. Those are spatial tears. Spatial tears. One of the bandits, a god, called out numbly like an idiot. Only the material attacks of someone who was at least at the 6-star fiend level of power was capable of creating spatial tears. These bandits normally would never have a chance to see such a thing. To the likes of them, creating spatial tears in the infernal realm was something out of legends. When those icy needles that created spatial tears hit that god, they didn't do anything. The bandits stared dumbly. For a body to be able to withstand an attack that could create spatial tears was too terrifying. The bandits stared disbelievingly at the dragon-formed Linley. That god, we were actually. What god? He's an expert. A 6-star fiend. No, a 7-star fiend. A true, supreme expert. He was just hiding his power just now. The leader of the bandits immediately shouted. Quick, let's run farther away and watch from a distance. Let's not get hit by any shockwaves. In battles like this, the slightest shockwaves can take our lives with ease. Right. The bandits were completely stunned, and all of them hurriedly ran farther into the distance. From Linley's killing of the captain to the execution of the 6-star fiend, barely any time had actually passed, perhaps just as long as it took for the sparks of a flint to emerge when struck. But that instant had caused the 10+ enemies to be completely stunned. Lord Mosley, his body is very powerful. The 6-star fiends hurriedly sent through divine sense. We used our full force against him in material attacks, but weren't able to hurt him at all. Just now, Linley had only dodged slightly. Even if a few attacks landed on him, he wasn't too concerned. He didn't even fear the material attacks of 7-star fiends. How could he fear the material attacks of 6-star fiends? He's a soul expert, and his material defense is so powerful as well. Mosley had a bad feeling, but then he made his decision. Since material attacks are useless, I'll have to test a soul attack. I want to see if he'll be able to endure my soul attack. Mosley had no other options. Soul attacks, en masse. Mosley gave the order. Mosley knew that no matter how tough one's soul was, if one was hit by a large number of soul attacks from many experts, one would still be doomed. This was because when a true expert was dealing with group attacks, the way to successfully deal with them wasn't to take them all head-on, it was to make sure that each time, only a few attacks would actually land. The third. Linley instantly stared at Mosley. Based on quick reaction from the other side, Linley became certain that this devilish man with serpents hanging from his ears should be a tough opponent. Swoosh. Linley immediately flew over. Mosley was resisting the gravitational pull, there was no way he could escape Linley's attack. Mosley didn't try to escape either, his right palm stretched out, and his eyes shot out with a hazy black light as his lips began to move as he mumbled some strange words. Captain. Right at this moment, Melina and the others flew over at high speed. Linley felt a surge of jubilation in his heart. His right hand flipped out, and a devilish violet light flashed. Blood violet, carrying Linley's force, chopped directly towards Mosley. His powerful physical strength, when matched with the profound truths of velocity, caused Bloodviolet's speed to reach an extreme. Where the sword passed by, space cracked apart. Mosley's right palm struck out towards Linley, and instantly, a pitch-black, semi-translucent hand seal shot out towards Linley. Linley's face changed, and at just this moment, the other 6 star fiends all launched their own soul attacks as well. Harg! Linley hurriedly changed the direction of his gravitational space. He made gravity pull downwards. Caught by surprise, those 6 star fiends couldn't help but drop, and their soul attacks were impacted as well. Crunch! The translucent hand seal covered by that black light shot directly into Linley's body. There was no way to block it at all, and Linley himself hurriedly pulled away from the enemy while wholeheartedly focusing on defending against the soul attack. The black hand burrowed its way into Linley's body, then dug towards Linley's mind. Not good. Linley's face changed dramatically. He immediately flew into the sky, striving to put some distance between him and his opponents, for fear that another attack would come. Bang! When that black hand seal entered his mind, it struck directly against that translucent membrane. It trembled slightly, as though it was about to disperse, but then, strangely enough, the energy of the black hand seal actually spread out, covering Linley's entire consciousness, instantly discovering the weak spot. Amazingly enough, the dispersed energy then reformed, actually transforming into a needle, piercing directly towards the flaw in the membrane. Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 26, Spiritual Chaos. The bandage over the flaw in the membrane managed to resist for only a moment before being punctured straight through by that black needle. The black needle entered the most important part of Linley's mind, the area above his sea of consciousness. Rumble. The entire sea of consciousness began to swirl, and countless rays of spiritual energy danced about, merged together with that azure light and swept towards that black needle, which had no place to hide. Crackle, that spiritual energy which glowed with azure light surrounded the black needle and stalemated it, with the two slowly grinding each other down. Mosley and the other 14 six-star fiends raised their heads, staring at Linley. Lord Mosley, what should we do? They looked at Mosley. Keep attacking. His soul defense isn't exceptionally strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't need to spend so much time to resist my attack. Mosley immediately ordered. Remember. Use soul attacks against him. Yes. The experts immediately rushed into the sky. Linley's ashen face returned to its normal appearance. At this moment, Melina, Shonda, and the other 10 six-star fiends of the Azure Dragon clan had gathered here as well. Captain, are you all right? Melina hurriedly asked. I'm fine. Linley shook his head, but in his heart, he still felt a surge of fear. Luckily, I've undergone the ancestral baptism, and the primal energy of the Azure Dragon clan intensified and merged with my soul. In the end, I was able to endure it. The primal energy of the Azure Dragon clan, that azure light, was very unusual. It was capable of fusing with spiritual energy in order to execute their innate divine ability. At the same time, it could also be used to protect the soul. They are attacking. A member of the squad suddenly said frantically. Linley lowered his head to stare at the 15 people flying towards them at high speed. He immediately ordered through divine sense, that bald, grey-robed man is a 7-star fiend who specializes in soul attacks. In a little bit, Shonda, you and the other 5 who are specialized in material attacks should go deal with him. As for the other 4, accompany me in killing the other 6-star fiends. Captain, just Shonda and the other 5? Are they enough? Melina said with concern. Don't worry. I still have a card up my sleeve I have yet to play. Linley looked down at the 15 people charging from below. The reason he hadn't used his ultimate technique was because his forces hadn't arrived yet. Another reason was that he was afraid that the enemy would panic and immediately flee. This was why he hadn't used that technique, spiritual chaos. Spiritual chaos was a technique which could only be used with the assistance of the Black Stone. At Malugo Island, Linley had relied on this technique to force a large number of high gods to enter a dazed state. Even 7 star fiends would be slightly affected. But when experts did battle, just a slight effect would be enough. 11 of them. Mosley narrowed his eyes. Ignore the others. Kill that leader. Mosley shouted through divine sense. When we kill that 7-star fiend, we can be considered as having avenged your captain. Kill. At this time, nobody was going to retreat. Nobody who dared to join their clan's war squads would cower. Mosley led his 14 6-star fiends in an upwards charge, directly into Linley's Blackstone space. These 15 people were clustered together, for fear of being targeted and killed individually. The 15 flew together, as though they were one unified body, directly towards Linley. The 10 6-star fiends of the Azure Dragon clan were next to Linley as well, and Linley gave the order coolly. Let's go. According to their plan, Linley's group of 11 would also charge downwards. After all, the distance between them was less than a few hundred meters. They would fight in close combat in just a moment. Kill. Linley's side seemed to care not one whit for their own lives. Kill. Mosley's side, as well, seemed to be utterly fearless towards death. Linley's eyes suddenly flashed and turned cold. In his sea of consciousness, his spiritual energy, centered around the Black Stone, began to turn, and strange rays of spiritual energy instantly spread out, surrounding the entire gravitational space. This spiritual chaos effect was immediately applied against those 15 people. Whoosh! Mosley's group of 15 simultaneously heard a very strange, unique wind sound reverberate in their minds. This sort of wind sound caused their minds to uncontrollably feel dazed for a moment. But that moment of being dazed was also the most critical moment in this battle. Slash. 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 Just like slicing watermelons, more than half of the 6-star fiends of the Barbary clan who were affected by the spiritual chaos were killed. Linley was like a tiger or like a pack of wolves, instantly killing 3 of the 6-star fiends. Shonda and the other 5 who were specialized in material attacks launched their assaults directly against Mosley. Mosley just felt his head go slightly dizzy, but his mind was still clear. As a supreme expert who specialized in the soul, this sort of soul effect didn't impact him too much. But when he saw how many people on his side had been killed, he was instantly enraged. Mosley let out an explosive howl. A translucent, fan-shaped ripple burst out from Mosley, spreading out towards those 6 attackers coming from in front of him. Shonda and the other 6-star fiends only had enough time to unleash a single fierce material attack before they themselves were hit. The translucent ripple passed through the bodies of Shonda and the other 5. Their bodies trembled, and then 3 of them collapsed from the skies. The 3 had died. Shonda. Melina called out frantically. Big brother. Another squad member, a female one, howled bitterly as well. Shonda was one of the 3 who had died. Not good. Watching this from behind, Linley was deeply shocked. This person was actually unaffected by my spiritual chaos technique. In Malugo Island, he had battled against 7-star fiends before, and that time, his opponent had been affected. However, Mosley clearly was highly specialized in the soul, and thus his endurance in taking these attacks was greater as well. Swish. 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 The material attacks which Shonda's group of 6 had launched had transformed into the shapes of sabers, needles, awls, threads, and all of them shot out towards Mosley. Although Mosley's soul was strong, his material defense was average. The gravity was too strong. Mosley didn't have enough time to dodge. Arg. Mosley let out an angry roar, a deep, rumbling roar. Immediately, the illusory image of an enormous long, black, coiling serpent appeared behind Mosley. This black serpent naturally emanated a heart-shaking aura. Its entire body was as black as tar. It only had a single eye, and this eye was vertical, as red as blood. Slash. Slash. The material attack slashed down on Mosley's body. His armor shattered, and his body was cut into. Mosley, knowing that he didn't have enough time to dodge, had focused on allowing the energy attacks to strike non-lethal parts of his body, guaranteeing that his head was undamaged. This was the problem with material attacks. They weren't like soul attacks, which could be aimed at a specific weakness, making it so that there was no real way to protect an important part of the body. Material attacks were generally only effective in close combat. Die. Mosley stared at Linley. That enormous coiling black serpent behind him also stared at Linley with its solitary, blood-red eye. Not good. Linley hurriedly controlled his blackstone space, making the direction of the gravity orient downwards, wanting to impact his opponent. Rumble, a translucent ray of light shot out from the center of Mosley's forehead, piercing directly towards Linley. Innate divine ability, Soul Extinguisher. Captain. The other 6 star fiends were greatly shocked. No time. The attack of this innate ability was simply too fast. He wasn't even able to dodge. Linley couldn't help but just grit his teeth, planning to take it head on. Swish. An arm suddenly appeared in front of Linley, blocking for him just as that translucent ray of light was about to hit him. That translucent ray of light shot directly into the arm. Linley turned to look. Shocked, he said, Scar Sikaer. Scar, one of the 10 6-star fiends under Linley's command. Scar normally was a man of few words, but he had never hesitated with regards to Linley's orders. Who would have imagined at this moment, Scar would suddenly sacrifice himself to save Linley? Scar fell directly the skies. Kill. At the same time, the other squad members transformed into rays of light, attacking directly towards Mosley's head. Roar. Mosley once more emitted that furious roar. But before he was able to launch that soul attack yet again, the sound of the air exploding could be heard, and his head transformed into a pile of mud-like flesh as a divine spark flew out. Mosley, dead. The world suddenly turned quiet. In mid-air, Linley and the others remained quiet for quite some time. In this battle, they had killed 2 enemy 7-star fiends and 12 6-star fiends, with 3 6-star fiends escaping. 3 still managed to flee. Melina said unhappily. It's my fault. I didn't expect that Mosley would be completely unaffected. Linley said. Although they had killed the vast majority of the enemy's 6-star fiends, when Linley and Mosley had been fighting, those remaining 6-star fiends had known that there was no hope of victory, and so had immediately fled. Scar. Thank you. Linley turned to look at a 6-star fiend. It was Scar, who had just saved him. Scar himself had a total of 3 bodies. During this battle, he had left only one divine clone back in Bloodbath Gorge, keeping another one in his body. Just now, when Mosley had used his innate divine ability, Soul Extinguisher, Scar had immediately separated his 2 clones, allowing his divine clone to stretch his arm out and block that attack. Captain, it doesn't matter too much that I lost a divine clone. 7-star fiends are the true pillars of our clan. You can't die. Scar said. When we came, there were 11 of us. Now, 3 of us have lost our most powerful divine clones. Linley looked around, then sighed. The 3 had been killed by Mosley. It was my miscalculation. If Mosley had been affected by the spiritual chaos, then Shonda and the others would have been able to kill him. Captain, this is already a major victory. Right, a tremendous win. Scar only lost a weak divine clone. It isn't a huge loss to him. Our only true losses are those 3 6-star fiends. However, today, we actually killed 12 6-star fiends, and even 7-star fiends. We killed 7-star fiends. 2 of them. And Captain, you didn't die yourself. We didn't lose much. Using my divine clone to trade for the most powerful body of a 7-star fiend? Worth it? Hearing the words of his squad members, Linley felt slightly calmer. According to the historical accomplishments of his clan in battle, it was indeed a grand victory for their side to only lose 3 6-star fiends while killing so many enemy experts, especially given that there were 2 7-star fiends amongst them. In our battle against the 8 great clans, our normal casualty ratio is close to 1-to-1. It is quite rare for us to gain a complete victory like this. Melina hurriedly said. Let's go back. Linley took a deep sigh. This was the first time he had engaged in this brutal clan war, and Linley himself felt that this battle was a very brutal one. But he looked at the other squad members. None of them seemed to care that 3 of our squad members lost their most powerful divine clones. Clearly, they've experienced too much. Linley thought back to those red-lettered names written on the stone pillar outside Squad 13's residences. Those names represented dead squad members. The war between the 4 Divine Beasts clan and the 8 great clans is nothing more than a war of attrition. Many in our clan have died, but the same is true for theirs. Linley sighed to himself. At the same time, he flew into the air alongside the other 7 squad members. Captain, your ambush was truly formidable. You immediately killed one of the 7-star fiends. Ambush? It was a one-use strategy. In the future, the enemy won't give us such a good opportunity. Linley understood that both Mosley as well as the 7-star fiend he had killed at the very start would most likely have divine clones back in their base. By now, the enemy clan was definitely aware of his ambush. From today onwards, the enemy squads would definitely be very vigilant against enemy gods. They wouldn't be caught off guard again. In the distant mountain forests, a group of bandits watched as Linley's squad flew away. For a long moment, they remained speechless and terrified. Leader, what was that enormous black serpent just now? It was so terrifying. That was the innate divine ability of a divine beast. I've seen a divine beast use an innate divine ability before. However, compared to what we just saw, that great black serpent was thousands of times more terrifying. The aura of it alone made me feel as though I couldn't breathe. The battle just now had utterly terrified these god-level bandits. And we actually had dared to try and rob that supreme expert. The bandits were overcome with endless regret. After having witnessed this battle, they knew that for Linley, killing them was something that could be accomplished in the blink of an eye. Most likely, this memory would remain with them for the rest of their lives. They would never forget that they once tried to waylay a supreme expert. Linley led his squad of 7, quietly sneaking back towards the Skirite Mountains. They were very careful on the way back, afraid that the 8 great clans might discover them. After flying for a long time, Linley's group finally arrived at the Skirite Mountains. They flew directly to the air above the Skirite Mountains. Why are there so many people? Linley stared in astonishment. There were quite a few people in the air above Bloodbath Gorge, with the leader of the group including the Patriarch, the Grand Elder, and some others. Patriarch Gislason currently had a hint of a smile on his face. Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 27, Bestowal. Above Bloodbath Gorge, at the edges of the cliff. A large group of people was standing here, with the leader being the Patriarch and the Grand Elder. What are they doing here? Linley was somewhat puzzled. Linley immediately flew over, but before he even had the chance to salute, the Patriarch, Gislason, laughed and said, "Welcome back, Linley." By the side of the Patriarch was the Grand Elder, dressed in a long black robe and wearing that silver mask. "Well done, Linley." The Grand Elder spoke as well. "Linley, quite impressive. You killed 2 7-star fiends. Admirable, admirable." The nearby Elder Garvey laughed loudly as well. Elder Linley's very first act is so impressive. The golden-haired Elder, Foreign, laughed brightly as well. Faced with the praise of the patriarch and this group of elders, Linley was rather stupefied. My clones as well as clones of the other squad members left behind in Bloodbath Gorge haven't gone to inform the patriarch or the Grand Elder of this matter yet. Because the trip back wasn't too long of a trip, Linley had been planning to make the report upon returning. Who would have imagined that the patriarch and the Grand Elder already knew about it? What he didn't know was that this sort of wonderful news pertaining to their clansmen would also be very quickly reported back to the Four Divine Beasts clan by their intelligence agents. Enough. Everyone, don't just stand here. Come. I've already ordered for a grand banquet to be prepared for celebration. Gislason laughed loudly, then looked at Linley. Linley, come, walk with me. Linley immediately flew over. Gislason slapped Linley on the shoulders, his face wreathed in smiles. Well done. Just luck. Linley immediately said. If he had fought them head-on, those two 7-star fiends definitely would have been stronger than him. Thus, he succeeded only because he suddenly killed one, and then gathered his forces to join together to kill the other one. Why so humble? Gislason laughed. This time, I really was quite worried about him. I didn't expect that the mission would be completed even more perfectly than I could have hoped for. The Grand Elder said. Immediately, Gislason, the Grand Elder, and Linley flew together in front of that group of elders, as well as the lucky survivors of Squad 13, straight into the depths of the Skirite Mountains. After a long time, Linley's group arrived at a lavishly, grey crystal palace. Quite a few maidservants of the clan were carrying platters in a steady stream into the palace. The palace was very wide, and it was tens of meters high as well. Within the palace, there were 9 stone pillars that were holding the ceiling up. The patriarch and the Grand Elder flew straight to the front of the palace, then sat down together. In the clan, the status of the patriarch was just slightly higher than that of the Grand Elder. However, in the clan, the patriarch and the Grand Elder were considered the highest level figures, while the other elders were subordinate to them. All of you, take your seats. Patriarch Gislason waved his hand and laughed. Linley, you can take the seat of honor to the left. Gislason pointed to a seat, then laughed. After all, today's celebratory banquet is held in your honor. Me. Linley was stunned. There were quite a few elders more powerful than him, and his record of accomplishments was still quite low. Linley, since the patriarch told you to sit, then sit. A silver-haired, cold-faced youth walked over, a rare smile on his face. Elder Blue. Linley nodded, then sat. As for this Elder Blue, he sat down directly next to Linley, in the secondary seat of honor on the left. Nobody dared say anything when he took this spot. After all, this Elder Blue was the clan's genius elder. According to legend, his power was only inferior to that of the Patriarch and the Grand Elder, and was vastly superior to that of the other elders. One of the 3 trump cards of the clan. In addition, when their ancestor, the Azure Dragon, was still alive, he doted dearly on Blue, and had spent a large amount of effort to strengthen Blue's body, making Blue's body extremely powerful. Our Four Divine Beasts clan has battled with the 8 great clans for 10,000 years, but such major victories have been very rare. Seated at the front of the palace, Gislason let out a sigh. Normally speaking, if one side felt they would be unable to win, they would immediately flee. To kill a 7-star fiend who was trying to flee was very difficult. Killing 2 7-star fiends in a row, with one's own side suffering only minimal losses, was extremely rare. It's rare to have such a magnificent victory. If we can kill 2 of their 7-star fiends every time, no matter how many experts the 8 great clans have, they won't be able to last against us. Immediately, some elders began to laugh. The entire palace became filled with the sound of laughter. Linley, what is it? Blue, seated next to Linley, realized that Linley wasn't laughing. I'm fine. I'm just thinking about Elder Arhouse, and the sacrifices of the many other elders. Linley sighed softly. Immediately, quite a few elders in the hall fell silent. Over the past 10,000 years of non-stop battle, when they had slaughtered the enemy 7 star fiends, their own side's experts had been steadily dwindling as well. 6 star fiends died in entire batches. The foundation of power which the clan had built up over countless hundreds of millions of years was being steadily whittled away. What sort of attitude is this, all of you? The Grand Elder barked. Everyone couldn't help but look at the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder said coldly, even if our entire 4 Divine Beasts clan dies out, we won't permit those 8 clowns to besmirch the reputation of our clan. When our ancestors were present, did those 8 great clans dare to resist us? But now that the ancestor is dead, they'll come for revenge? Humph. How can clowns like these possibly make our 4 Divine Beasts clan submit? For the sake of the clan, so what if we die? Elder Blue said arrogantly as well. For the sake of the clan. Linley, too, could sense the arrogance and pride of the many elders in the palace. That they would rather die than submit. As the saying goes, better to be a shattered piece of jade than an undamaged tile of brick. For the sake of the clan. Linley said quietly in his heart. When he was young, Linley had always wanted to retrieve the ancestral heirloom of the Barrack clan, the Warblade Slaughterer. Linley had a deep sense of belonging towards the Barrack clan. Nowadays, although he had joined the Azure Dragon clan and met countless clansmen who had the same draconic lineage as he did, and thus had a sense of belonging, Linley still couldn't completely understand that sort of pride and arrogance. If Linley was in control of the clan, he probably would have his clansmen all hide themselves within the Skirite Mountains and wait for the day when they had a 90% chance of success in gaining revenge before going and battling with the enemy. Perhaps, it's because I never experienced the glory days of the 4 Divine Beasts clan. Linley said to himself. The arrogance of the 4 Divine Beasts clan came from countless years of being mighty. Countless years of glory. The illustriousness of the clan had long ago been embedded in the hearts of every single elder. Enough. Gislason laughed loudly. Just look at those looks on your faces. Today is a day of celebration. Why are we all discussing those things? Come, let's have a toast. Enough of that topic. Today, let's just drink to our heart's content and have a good celebration, a celebration for Linley's victory. Yes, let's celebrate. All of the elders raised their wine glasses while looking towards Linley. Linley couldn't help but feel the blood boiling in his veins. He, too, raised his glass, and each and every single member of Squad 13, seated at the margins of the palace, all raised their cups as well. Cheers. Gislason said brightly. Cheers. Everyone in the palace replied, and they all downed their wine in one gulp. During this banquet, nobody else raised any dispiriting matters. There had been far too many brutal, vicious happenings over the past few years. A good celebration was long past overdue. But this sort of happiness only made Linley feel all the more aware of the dreary sadness hidden behind this formerly unsurpassably powerful 4 Divine Beasts clan. The dreary desolateness of an ancient clan which had fallen. But although they had fallen, the clan still had their pride. Even in the face of despair, they wouldn't compromise at all. Anybody who wanted to attack the clan in their moment of weakness would have to pay an enormous price as well. The celebratory mood of the banquet finally came to an end, and each of the elders left. Linley and the members of Squad 13 were about to leave as well. Linley. Stay. The voice of the patriarch came from the front of the palace. Linley couldn't help but feel puzzled, but he immediately instructed the members of Squad 13, you can go back first. Yes, Captain. Melina and the others all flew back. Linley returned to the palace. The many platters within the palace were currently being taken away by the serving maids at high speed. Patriarch Gislason walked down from his position at the front of the palace, then instructed, Linley, let's chat inside. Yes, Patriarch. Linley followed Gislason into a side room next to the palace. The side room wasn't very large. After Linley walked into it, he only heard a squeak as the door actually closed automatically. Sit. A hint of a smile was on Gislason's face. Linley sat down, then asked, Patriarch, is there something you need? I made you an elder, but I didn't expect that during the conclave of elders, they would actually have you go to Bloodbath Gorge. By the time I found out about it, I couldn't order you to come back. Gislason sighed. You are only a god. It isn't very appropriate to have you in Bloodbath Gorge. Gislason valued Linley very highly. One reason was because of Linley's connection to his father, the Azure Dragon, while the other reason was because of the power which Linley had displayed. I originally thought that my younger sister wouldn't give you any assignments, but who would have thought that she did? Gislason continued. The other elders are all fighting on behalf of the clan. How can I be an exception? Linley said. Gislason's eyes lit up. Laughing, he nodded. Actually, my younger sister and I were both mistaken about each other. I had thought that my younger sister wouldn't send you to do battle. But my younger sister thought that I had already given you sovereign's might, and so you would be able to protect yourself. That's why she sent you off. Sovereign's might. Linley said, puzzled. Right. Gislason nodded as he spoke. Generally speaking, anyone who can become an elder of our four divine beasts clan would soon afterwards be bestowed a drop of sovereign's might. But there must be an explanation given for this bestowal of sovereign's might. You have to have accomplished some sort of meritorious deed, at least. That matter between you and Emmanuel? That was just causing trouble. Although you became an elder, it wasn't appropriate for me to bestow a sovereign's might upon you right away. But this time, you can be considered to have rendered great merits. With a flip of his hand, Gislason revealed a drop of azure water. Contained within that azure water drop was a power that made one's heart tremble. Today, I bestow upon you this drop of water-type sovereign's might. Gislason said. As he spoke, the drop of sovereign's might floated towards Linley. Linley, watching that drop of sovereign's might flow towards him, was utterly stunned. Bestowing sovereign's might to him. He himself already had 2 drops. But of course, at a time like this, Linley couldn't refuse. Thank you, Patriarch. Linley hurriedly stretched his hand out, accepting this drop of sovereign's might. Gislason laughed and nodded. Now that you have a drop of sovereign's might, even if you run into some sort of critically dangerous situation, you'll be able to stay alive. But Linley, unless the situation is truly critical, you cannot waste this drop of sovereign's might. If you are forced to use it, you need to wipe out the enemy. Linley lowered his head to look at the drop of sovereign's might. This was a drop of the power of a sovereign, but could it truly be used to save his life? Would it be able to defend against the soul attacks of others? Linley still clearly remembered that scene of how that Mosley executed his innate divine ability. Patriarch, can it be that sovereign's might can be used to defend against soul attacks? Linley hurriedly asked. As Linley saw it, a sovereign's power should be to a sovereign what divine power was to a deity. It shouldn't have much to do with the soul. Of course it can. Gislason laughed. How? Linley said, puzzled. It shouldn't be possible for ordinary material force to block soul attacks, right? Gislason laughed even harder. Linley, are you under the impression that a sovereign's power is just the advanced version of divine power? Isn't it? Linley said, puzzled. Wrong. Gislason shook his head. Sovereign's might is very unique. For example, it can actually strengthen our bodies. Gislason took a deep breath, then said seriously, Linley, that year, my father explained to me that after he became a sovereign, his body only contained a single type of energy. Sovereign power. What do you mean? Linley said, puzzled. Of course a sovereign would have sovereign power. What I mean is, sovereigns don't even have spiritual energy. Gislason said. What? Linley was stupefied. The soul was a person's foundation. Anyone who had a soul would naturally have spiritual energy. Or, to be more precise, sovereign power is the same as spiritual energy. Gislason laughed. Thus, sovereign's might is capable of not just being a material energy source, it can also be used an energy source for the soul. Ah! Linley was shocked. You can rely on it to unleash material attacks, but you can also use it to unleash soul attacks. Naturally, you can also rely on it to block against soul attacks. Gislason said. Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 28, Freedom. In the past, Linley had known very little regarding sovereign's might. Thus, he had taken it for an advanced form of divine power. But now, it seemed, it was completely different. Sovereign's might was actually capable of being used like spiritual energy. Sovereign's might also has one other benefit. Gislason laughed. When you use sovereign's might, for a short moment, both your body and your soul will be uplifted. Linley was surprised. This is the truth. Gislason sighed. However, the amount of uplifting isn't very great. If one was willing to be wasteful and consecutively use hundreds of drops of sovereign's might, both the soul and the body will be tremendously transformed. Hundreds of drops? Who has that many? Linley laughed. Even if someone does have that many, they wouldn't be willing to waste it like that. Gislason said. Our 4 divine beasts clans' one and only advantage over the 8 great clans is that we have quite a bit of sovereign's might. Gislason sighed. By relying on sovereign's might, we are able to be at the level where even when under group assault, we can still fight back. This is the only reason why we've been able to keep the death ratio at 1-to-1. Linley nodded. After this recent experience, Linley realized how powerful the enemy was. For example, Mosley's innate divine ability truly was terrifying. Now that our ancestors have died, the more sovereign's might we use up, the less we have. Gislason warned. Linley, you cannot waste the sovereign's might. Unless the situation is critical, using it simply isn't worth it. Yes, Patriarch. Linley replied. Even the 4 divine beasts clan had a dwindling stockpile of sovereign's might. Enough. You can go back for now. In the upcoming period of time, my younger sister shouldn't assign you any more missions. After all, after this experience, the 8 great clans will be very much on their guard against you. In the future, it won't be so easy for you to kill 2 7-star fiends. Gislason laughed. Linley nodded, then immediately left. Indigo Prefecture, the eastern borders. 4 of the 8 great clans were located here, amongst them the Barbary clan which had moved here from the Divine Water Plain. Deep within a dark estate, a giant was standing within a flower garden. He was 3.5 meters tall, and his face was covered with a green beard, each hair looking like a steel needle. He was dressed in a plain, unadorned set of armor, and on his shoulders, there was a black, serpent-patterned cloak attached. This person was staring directly at Cole, who was standing before him. Cole, you were killed without even being able to fight back. The giant said, frowning. Patriarch, I didn't expect. Cole's face was filled with rage. He clearly was just a god, but who would have imagined that he was just hiding his aura? When he was very close to me, he suddenly ambushed me, I didn't have any chance to react at all. Currently, Cole only had his divine wind clone remaining. Not just me. Even Mosley wasn't able to detect that this person was hiding his aura. Cole said hurriedly. This patriarch of the Barbary clan frowned even more deeply. Patriarch, based on what the clones of my subordinates told me, the person who killed me didn't have an extremely powerful soul defense. Cole said hurriedly. The Barbary clan's patriarch couldn't help but grow puzzled. He swept his gaze towards the outside of the garden, and instantly, a black shadow flitted in from outside, standing there respectfully. Quickly go investigate if there is a new elder within the Azure Dragon clan who is skilled at hiding his power. The patriarch of the Barbary clan instructed. Yes, elder. The black shadow vanished once more. After having completed the last mission, the Grand Elder wouldn't possibly send Linley into battle once more in the near term. Thus, Linley rejoined Bibi, Delia, Caesar, and the others in the gorge, enjoying some rare, peaceful days. More than 2 years had passed since the last assignment. In the past 2 years, not many things happened. On this day, Linley and Delia were currently eating some food together. Delia, seems to have something she wants to say. Linley laughed to himself. Today, Delia was very absent-minded as she ate, as though she wanted to say something but didn't. Linley. Delia hesitated a long time, then finally spoke. Linley chuckled. He had been waiting a long time for her to speak. Delia, what is it? Delia paused a moment, then said, Linley. We've been here in the Skirite Mountains for quite some time. It's been 80 years now, right? Right. Linley nodded. What of it? Linley, we rushed all the way here to Indigo Prefecture, then entered the Skirite Mountains. Right, we've returned to your clan, but, are we just going to stay in the Skirite Mountains forever? Delia asked him instead. Linley couldn't help but frown. Delia, you want to leave? You want to depart from the Skirite Mountains? Linley felt this came out of nowhere. No, that's not what I mean. Delia said hurriedly. Actually, I want to follow the forces of the clan to go on a trip to the cities. No, Linley refused decisively. It's too dangerous. No. It's not dangerous. Delia said hurriedly. In fact, it's not just me. Bibi, Dylan, and the others all want to go on a trip outside. Linley, we've been in this same place without going anywhere else this entire time. It's not as bad for you. You can train and you can go battle. But the rest of us are just here in this gorge every day. After a long period of time, we all feel rather stifled. Linley was stunned. He understood what Delia meant. To be in a single place with no contact with the outside world, it wouldn't be so bad at first, but after more time passed, one would feel terribly depressed. If a very long period of time passed, one would be accustomed to being depressed and lonely, at which point one's very temperament would change. Delia, in particular, had accompanied Linley on their long journey over here. Her heart, like his, was a free one, which couldn't endure this sort of restrictions. Delia, I understand your feelings. Linley nodded. In the past, when he had entered the mountain range of magical beasts for training for 3 years, he only had Bibi by his side for those 3 years. That sort of solitary, lonely life was indeed quite stifling. He himself had only been able to hold on and persevere because of his hatred, which had let him endure it all. Delia, I'm sorry. Linley reached out to take Delia's hand. At this moment, Linley came to a realization. He had been too selfish. He always thought of things from his own viewpoint. He wanted to return to his clan. He wanted to battle in Bloodbath Gorge for the clan. But he hadn't considered the situation from Delia and Bibi's viewpoints. He himself could live a very exciting life. But what about them? Always in their little gorge, living a leisurely, dull life. Bibi was the lively sort, and Delia enjoyed her freedom as well. Linley himself liked an exciting, lively life. Nobody liked to live a flavorless, boring life. He had completely neglected Delia and Bibi. Thinking of this, Linley couldn't refrain from saying, Delia, I truly am sorry. Say no more. Delia laughed and shook her head. It's fine. I just want to go for a slight change in atmosphere. Once I'm in a better mood, I'll be fine. I want you to go out and relax as well. Only, it really is very dangerous. Linley said nervously. Linley, it really isn't dangerous. Delia said hurriedly. Actually, the Azure Dragon clan has quite a few clansmen who often go to the nearby cities to go sightseeing and shopping. It truly isn't dangerous. It isn't dangerous. Linley didn't understand. Linley, if you don't believe me, you can ask the other elders. Delia immediately said. Oh. Linley nodded. How about this? Delia, you wait here. I'll go ask the other elders. If there really isn't much danger, I'll let you go. Linley didn't want his wife to be too stifled either. Linley immediately flew up through Dragon Avenue, constantly pondering in his mind Delia's words. The more he thought of it, the more he felt that he had neglected Delia, Bibi, and the others. They had all accompanied him to the Skirite Mountains. But in the end, they had to stay in that gorge and didn't dare to leave it at all. This sort of life, akin to living in a prison, was this what he had to offer for Delia and Bibi? From afar, through the corner of his eyes, Linley saw a person flying in the air. It was the familiar figure of Elder Garvey. He hurriedly shouted, "Elder Garvey!" Puzzled, Elder Garvey turned to look, then laughed, and flew over. Linley, what a coincidence! Linley laughed, "Elder Garvey, there's something important I want to ask you about. Come, let's chat over there." Linley and Garvey flew together to a nearby location halfway up the mountain. "Linley, what is it?" Garvey asked, puzzled. "Our clan often has people who go to the cities." Linley asked. "Oh. Yes, we do, actually." Garvey laughed. "First of all, our clan needs to buy some things on occasion. Secondly, our clansmen are always trapped here within the Skirite Mountains. Quite a few of them can't stand this type of restriction, and so they'll go out to improve their mood. However, each time, the number of people permitted to leave is limited." "Is it dangerous?" Linley asked. "There's not much danger." Garvey laughed. "In the past 10,000 years, there hasn't been a single incident. Aren't we in a state of war against the 8 great clans? How can it be that our clansmen are in no danger when heading out?" Linley didn't understand. "Linley, think about how vast the infernal realm is. Do you think running into someone is a simple matter? The battles which occur between us and the 8 great clans occur because both of us are consciously seeking them out. It's only because they travel on predetermined routes and because we have intelligence agents constantly monitoring those routes that we are able to so easily run into them." Linley nodded. "As for our clan, when a group of us ride a single metallic life form and go to a city, there's no way we can be on a predetermined route." Garvey said. "This world is incomparably vast, and we can go anywhere we please. In addition, on our way over, even if the 8 great clans see a metallic life form, there's no way they would know that it belongs to our Azure Dragon clan." Linley began to understand. More important, they can't send 7 star fiends just running around randomly everywhere. Even if an intelligence agent of theirs discovers that we are aboard a metallic life form, the metallic life form will quickly fly off into the distance, and because the route is not predetermined, there's no way the enemy can possibly guess where the metallic life form has flown to." Garvey laughed. Linley nodded to himself as well. The chances of both being encountered as well as being recognized really was 1 in 100 million. Most importantly of all, each time our clansmen go a group, an elder will be the escort. Garvey laughed. "This to guard against any unforeseen circumstances. If we really are so unlucky as to encounter an enemy 7-star fiend within this vast area, then we'll just have to engage in battle." Linley, hearing this, felt relieved. The chances of being encountered really were too low. It was virtually impossible, in fact. And even if there was an encounter, his side had a 7-star fiend on guard. What, do you have family or friends who want to go out and relax? Garvey asked. Right. Linley suddenly thought of the limitations Garvey had mentioned with respect to how many people could participate. How many people can go each time? 500 people per trip. Garvey nodded. Don't worry. As an elder, it will be very simple for you to arrange some family and friends to be included. In addition, if you really are worried, you can escort them yourself as well. If a problem occurred even when 2 elders are escorting, that would truly be quite bizarre, wouldn't it? Linley's eyes lit up. Linley himself was interested in accompanying Delia into the city for a nice stroll. The elders of Bloodbath Gorge are cyclically assigned to missions. I'm not doing anything right now anyhow. Linley immediately flew back towards Bloodbath Gorge and asked to meet with the Grand Elder. In the Azure Dragon Palace, the Grand Elder stared at Linley through her mask. What? You want to go out? The Grand Elder said coldly. Grand Elder, I just want to accompany our clansmen on a trip to the city. Linley said. I can't permit it right now. The Grand Elder shook her head. Recently, the battle between us and the 8 great clans has been fairly fierce. I might need to send you out on a mission at a moment's notice. Linley, the clan is more important. After your 1,000 years are up and you retire from Bloodbath Gorge, you can go where you please. Linley was stunned. He, too, knew that the battles had been very fierce, but he hadn't been sent on a mission in the past 2 years, after all. Going to a city was a trip of just a few months. For now, stay within the Skirite Mountains. Based on how our intelligence reports develop, I might have a mission for you very soon. The Grand Elder said. Yes, Grand Elder. Linley didn't particularly want to go visit the city himself anyways. The only reason he wanted to go was to protect Delia better. It's within an area of 1 trillion square kilometers, and why would a 7-star fiend be so bored as to just wander about randomly? And the chances of them recognizing that this was a group of our clansmen? And also being to defeat one of my clan's elders. Linley considered it, then set his mind at ease. The chances of something going wrong were virtually zero. Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 29, Joining Forces. Deep within the Skirite Mountains. An enormous metallic life form in the shape of a black phoenix was hovering there. The giant metallic life form was like a little mountain hovering in the skies. Currently, quite a few people were entering into this metallic life form. In the cliffs beneath the metallic life form, there was a large group of people who were traveling together, sending off their family and friends. Amongst them were Tarasi, Dylan, O'Brien, Bibi, Delia, and others, all of whom were standing next to Linley. Tarasi, Dylan, Olivier. Be careful in your travels. After you arrive at the city of Mir, whenever you have a chance, you have to come visit. I'll miss you all very much. Linley looked at these people and laughed. After he returned and told Delia that they could go to the cities, Linley came to understand that although Delia and Bibi were just going for a visit and would come back, Tarasi, Dylan, Caesar, and the others were preparing to immigrate to that city. Definitely. Dylan said very apologetically. Linley, actually, we originally wanted to stay here at your place, but the control and supervision within the Skirite Mountains is very strict, and we also aren't members of your clan, so we normally aren't even allowed to leave the gorge and wander around. So. I understand. Say no more. Linley laughed. In his heart, he couldn't help but sigh. Due to the struggle with the 8 great clans, the 4 Divine Beasts clan, to guard against the possibility of spies entering, was always very strict. Unless there was a special circumstance, the clansmen weren't permitted to wander about freely. As for Tarasi and Dylan, they weren't even members of the clan, so the patrolling warriors kept an even tighter watch on them. Tarasi and the others had nothing to do, yet they couldn't wander about either. Naturally, it was like sitting in prison for them. It was my fault for being inconsiderate, Linley said apologetically. Linley, don't say that, Tarasi said hurriedly. In their hearts, Linley had saved their lives, and so they were filled with gratitude towards Linley. Linley, in the future, when you have time, you need to come to Mir City to visit us. Definitely. Linley nodded. Then we'll head out for now. Tarasi, Caesar, Olivier, Dylan, and his children, these people bade farewell to Linley, then flew towards the distant metallic life form. As for Delia and Bibi, they remained by Linley's side. Linley. Delia looked towards Linley. Linley smiled as he looked at Delia. He couldn't help but give her a hug, then said gently, "Safe journeys." Delia couldn't help but feel a warm feeling surge in her heart. Nestling into Linley's arms, she acknowledged softly, and then lifted her head up to look at Linley. "Linley, don't worry about me. I won't be in any danger. It's you who I worry about. The battle between our clan and the 8 great clans is so fierce. When you fight for your clan, you need to remember that I'm waiting for you." Linley stared at his Delia. "Don't worry. Your husband is quite strong." Linley laughed. "Narcissist." Delia laughed as well. "Oh man, I refuse to watch this any longer. I'm leaving." Bibi suddenly called out. Linley couldn't help but glance sideways at Bibi, who just grinned wickedly. "All right. Delia, Bibi, safe journeys. I've already had a chat with the elder who is in charge of escorting you on this trip," Linley said. Delia and Bibi nodded, then bade Linley farewell as they too flew towards the metallic life form in the air. Linley raised his head, staring at the enormous metallic life form begin to move. In but an instant, it turned into a blur, disappearing into the horizon. He loved her, but he couldn't forcibly detain her. Everyone needed their own space. Linley turned and headed back towards Bloodbath Gorge. Halfway there, however, Linley saw clearly those many roving patrol soldiers, all of whom had stern looks on their faces as they cautiously kept watch on every place. The atmosphere within the clan really is too tense. These soldiers are always on patrol, for fear that a spy might slip in. Linley sighed. No wonder Tarasi and Dylan were unable to stay here, within this extremely tense atmosphere. It's not their fault. After all, the clan is currently in a state of crisis. Who knows if we'll be able to last another 10,000 years. Linley knew very well that although he was able to kill 2 of their 7 star fiends, the enemy was also capable of killing 2 of his side's 7 star fiends. A constant, never-ending battle. After 10,000 years, what would be the situation for the 4 Divine Beasts clan? Within that large quiet gorge in the Skirite Mountains. Linley was currently in his study, flipping through some books that introduced various places of the infernal realm. Linley suddenly closed the book, looking through the window to the outside world. Delia's group has been gone for over a month now. But I keep on having this restless feeling in my heart. Linley shook his head. I'm just thinking too much. Based on the distance between Mir City and the Skirite Mountains, a round trip would take 3 or 4 months. There was still quite some time before Delia would return. Even if they encountered any danger, the intelligence agents would definitely send the news back as well. This gorge is actually one of the most peaceful places in the entire Skirite Mountains. Through the window, Linley looked towards the distant grass. The descendants of the Yulon branch were all gathered there, chatting and laughing, seeming very leisurely. The reason they were blissful was because they were ignorant. They didn't know what sort of crisis the clan was currently facing, and the clan wasn't planning to inform these demigods and gods of the real situation. As for the high gods who knew what the clan's situation as, they were all worrying and training hard. They all wanted to enter Bloodbath Gorge and battle for the sake of the clan. Elder Linley. Suddenly, a voice rang out from outside. "Enter." Linley frowned. The person was dressed in a blood-red robe, the uniform of a Bloodbath Gorge warrior. Someone had been sent from Bloodbath Gorge? "What is it?" Linley asked. "Elder Linley, the Grand Elder has ordered that you make haste to the Azure Dragon Palace," the blood-robed warrior said respectfully. "The Grand Elder is summoning me." Linley immediately stood up. Not saying another word, he immediately flew outside. The blood-robed warrior followed close behind Linley as well. The two of them immediately flew into the skies, out of the gorge. Linley's departure, in turn, attracted the attention of quite a few people in the gorge. Whoosh! The cold wind howled, slicing against them like knives of ice. In Bloodbath Gorge, 6 starfiend were clustered together in groups of 3 or 5, while occasionally, a 7th starfiend could be seen. Linley's face was emotionless. He was hurrying towards the Azure Dragon Palace at high speed. Upon entering it, he immediately headed to the 5th floor. Linley swept the 5th floor with his gaze. Within this hall of the Azure Dragon Palace, there was the Grand Elder, dressed in that long black robe and with her face covered with that silver mask, who was seated on her throne. But in the main hall, aside from the Grand Elder, there was one more person. The balding Elder Emmanuel. Elder Emmanuel was currently standing to one side respectfully. Upon seeing him, Linley couldn't help but feel puzzled. "He's here also." "Elder Linley." Emmanuel smiled towards Linley. "Elder Emmanuel." Linley greeted him as well, then saluted respectfully. "Grand Elder." The Grand Elder, seated up above, said calmly, "Linley. In the war between our 4 Divine Beasts clan and the 8 Great Clans, the 8 Great Clans will occasionally send people out on predetermined routes, letting us attack them. Generally speaking, the attacking side has a slight advantage." Linley nodded. Attacking out of ambush could catch someone off guard. Naturally, they had an advantage. How can our 4 Divine Beasts clan always engage in this sort of sneak attack? The Grand Elder said coldly. Thus, our 4 Divine Beasts clan will often send our own squads out on predetermined routes, to await the attacks from our enemies. Linley sighed to himself. He knew that the clan did this. Originally, our house had led his squad out on a predetermined line to await the attacks of the enemy. That time, our house had engaged in a fierce battle with the enemy, with the result being that our house's most powerful divine clone had been killed. Once again, it is because of the glory of the clan. Linley sighed to himself. The 4 Divine Beasts clan, for the glory of the clan, wouldn't even deign to always engage in sneak attacks. One could imagine how arrogant they were. This time, I was planning to just send Emmanuel to lead the squad out on the predetermined route. The Grand Elder said. However, this is Emmanuel's first assignment, and he himself isn't confident, so he recommended you to me. Linley was startled. What was this supposed to mean? The assignment tasked to Emmanuel could shift to someone else? Grand Elder, he recommended me? What does that mean? Linley said, rather irritated. At the same time, he couldn't help but glance sideways at Emmanuel. Emmanuel hurriedly laughed. Linley, I know that you are very powerful, and so, I recommended that the Grand Elder allow you to accompany me on this assignment. Together. Linley was stunned. The Grand Elder nodded. Right. Normally, when our squads are on assignment, we have one elder leading each squad. Only occasionally will we send 2. This time, I want you to accompany Emmanuel. Linley glanced at Emmanuel. He couldn't help but feel a hint of dissatisfaction in his heart. After all, this was supposed to be Emmanuel's mission. Linley, it's been 2 years since you've been out on a mission. It's about time for you to have one anyhow. The Grand Elder said. Linley felt a surge of resignation. Going out to fight wasn't the issue. It was that this mission had come in a very unfair manner. What, you aren't willing? The Grand Elder asked. Emmanuel sighed emotionally. Linley, if you aren't willing to accompany me, then I'll go by myself to do battle. Even if I'm alone, I won't let the forces of the 8 great clans have an easy time of it. If push comes to shove, I'll just lose my divine water clone. Linley glanced sideways at Emmanuel. At a time like this, how could he refuse? Grand Elder, I'm willing to go. Linley said. Emmanuel's eyes lit up, and a smile unconsciously crept onto his face. Grand Elder, there's one thing. Linley said. Speak. The Grand Elder said. Linley said respectfully, Grand Elder, when our clan normally has an assignment, we just send out a single squad, with just a single 7-star fiend. I was hoping, that on this mission, we can put on a facade. Facade. The Grand Elder stared at Linley, puzzled. Linley, after their last experience, I imagine the experts of the 8 great clans won't be so incautious as to let a god draw near again. Linley chuckled. That sort of trick was a one-use trick only. Grand Elder, what I mean to say is, Elder Emmanuel and his squad should ride their metallic life form forward, while I will take just a single high god with me. The two of us, by ourselves, will ride on a metallic life form, pretending to be ordinary travelers. Linley laughed. A high god traveling with a god in the infernal realm is very common. It won't arouse the suspicion of the enemy intelligence agents. Oh. The Grand Elder was beginning to understand. Elder Emmanuel will be in the front, while I will be behind. We'll maintain some distance between the two of us. The enemies will believe that Elder Emmanuel is there by himself, and so they'll send less people over. Once they attack Elder Emmanuel, I'll be able to catch them off guard. Linley laughed. Elder Emmanuel's face had become rather ugly to behold. Linley was treating him as fish bait. Normally, a clan will just send out a single squad. The enemies won't suspect anything. Linley said. Fine. That's what we'll do. The Grand Elder said. Emmanuel didn't know how to dispute this. Make your preparations. You'll head out immediately. The Grand Elder said. Yes, Grand Elder. Linley and Emmanuel both bowed, and then Linley and Emmanuel both left. Linley. The Grand Elder suddenly said. Linley, puzzled, turned to look at the Grand Elder. A voice entered his mind. Linley, you are still just a god. You still have a lot of room for improvement. If you are to truly encounter any dangers on this mission, immediately use that drop of Sovereign's might. Your life is far more valuable than a drop of Sovereign's might. Linley felt a warm feeling in his heart, but he was puzzled as well. When the Grand Elder assigned this mission, it seemed as though she was showing partiality towards Emmanuel. And yet, here she was, saying this to him. Yes, Grand Elder. Linley didn't continue to ponder it, and just acknowledged. Emmanuel and Linley thus immediately left the Azure Dragon Palace. Linley, this time, we'll be joining forces. I hope that when we do battle, we won't have any suspicions of each other. Emmanuel sent to Linley through divine sense. Linley glanced at him sideways, then chuckled and sent back, naturally. As he spoke, Linley flew directly towards the residences of Squad 13. Emmanuel watched as Linley left. He let out a cold laugh, then he flew towards his own squad as well. Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 30, Surrounded and Attacked. Within Indigo Prefecture's borders. Within the vast, empty skies, a serpentine, dragon-shaped metallic life form was flying through the air. Moments later, another metallic life form in the shape of a black panther followed from behind. Within the dragon-shaped metallic life form, there were 12 people in total. To be precise, there was Emmanuel's group of 11, along with the death god golem. Emmanuel looked at the death god golem, and he couldn't help but feel rather uncomfortable in his heart. This death god golem belonged to Linley. By placing the death god golem here, Linley would be able to accurately determine the location of the metallic lifeform at all times. Elder Linley, your metallic lifeform had best not be too far away from mine. Otherwise, if battle begins and you were unable to make it over, that would be terrible. A yellow light flashed through Emmanuel's eyes as he said in a low voice. The death god golem's eyes opened, and it looked towards Emmanuel. Elder Emmanuel, don't worry. Although the location of the metallic lifeform that I am on is constantly changing, the distance between us won't become too great. Once battle starts, I'll immediately hurry over. Linley's voice came out of the death god golem. That would be good. Emmanuel said. By having the death god golem ride on Emmanuel's metallic lifeform, Linley was able to easily locate Emmanuel at all times, which naturally allowed him to more easily control the location of his own metallic lifeform. It might be more than 10 kilometers away from Emmanuel's, or it might be within 10 kilometers, or it might even fly up ahead of Emmanuel's. In short, he was trying not to arouse anyone's suspicions. Whoosh! The dragon-shaped metallic lifeform suddenly passed through a very wide river, and the waters of the river rolled about turbidly. Suddenly, a head suddenly appeared from within the waters, and this person stared up at the metallic lifeform as it flew past. Humph! The Azure Dragon clan's men truly are daring. They still dare to so arrogantly follow these predetermined paths, all of them are just looking for death. When clansmen of the Four Divine Beasts clan were intentionally challenging their enemies to a fight, they would change the shape of their metallic lifeforms into the shape of one of the four divine beasts. That way, the intelligence agents would immediately be able to recognize it. Adding a divine sense sweep, they would thus be certain. I need to immediately report this back to the clan. This person didn't even glance at the other metallic lifeform. This was because the metallic lifeform Linley was on was more than 7 or 8 kilometers away, and it wasn't following in a direct line. After all, the line of sight for a deity was limited, and so too was their divine sense. Given that he was 7 or 8 kilometers away, and that there were many mountain forests blocking the line of sight, how could anybody notice? The intelligence network of the 8 great clans was extremely efficient. That very day, the news made its way back. Although the 8 great clans were separated into 2 different areas, the exchange of information between them was still very fast, and they immediately came to a conclusion. This time, the assignment of assaulting the Azure Dragon clan's squad was assigned to the Ashcroft clan and the Barbary clan. This was because last time, each of the 2 clans had lost a 7-star fiend to the Azure Dragon clan. This time, it was their turn for revenge. Whoosh! Whoosh! 20 people were currently flying at a low altitude through the air. Last time, we lost 2 7-star fiends, but they didn't lose a single one. This time, we definitely have to kill that 7-star fiend belonging to the Azure Dragon clan. The leader, a tall, green-eyebrowed man, said in a solemn voice. Elder brother, this time, Elder Buledinlo will be with us. There definitely won't be any problems. Another person, a somewhat skinnier, green-eyebrowed man, laughed. These 2 siblings were both 3 meters tall, a typical example of a Barbary clan member. The only thing remarkable about them was their green eyebrows. The green eyebrow brothers of the Barbary clan were a pair of very famous 7-star fiends, and were exceedingly strong. As for Bulo, his fame was widespread in the netherworld, and he was one of the supreme experts of the Ashcroft clan. For 3 commanders to be sent on this mission was because this time, the clans were determined to avenge the previous humiliation. It didn't matter if their people died. But 2 7-star fiends of theirs died without killing a single 7-star fiend of the enemy. There was no way the 8 great clans would accept this. The tall, powerful green-eyebrowed man turned to look at the person next to them. He couldn't help but feel his heart tremble. This person was just 1.7 meters tall, and in the eyes of the Barbary clan, Such a person was just a tiny little fellow. But, nobody dared to look down this person. His entire body was covered in a long grey robe. He was bald, and his dry, wavy hair was slick against his head. His hair seemed yellow and dry, as though it had no life in it at all. His face was covered in frowns and wrinkles, giving him an ancient appearance, and in his ears hung a pair of green serpents. Those two green serpents were speaking in the serpentine language. I hope that this time, the Azure Dragon clan sent out that person named Linley. Below opened his eyes, which were of a very muddy color, with some occasional yellow light flashing through them. He said in a hoarse voice, "Last time, it was he who killed my grandson. If Linley goes, then Elder Below, we will definitely let you personally deal with him." The skinny, green-eyebrowed man said hurriedly. Mosley had been Below's grandson. Right. Below nodded. The green-eyebrowed siblings, although powerful members of the Barbary clan, in terms of status, were just middling amongst their assembly of elders. But this Below was different. Elder Below's status in the Ashcroft family was extremely high. In terms of power, he was within the top 3 for his clan as well. For the Ashcroft clan to send him out meant that, clearly, this time they were determined to kill the Azure Dragon clan's forces. I wonder how this Linley compares with that genius Elder, Blue, of the Azure Dragon clan. Elder Below chuckled. He's definitely inferior. The tall, green-eyebrowed man said. Although that Linley has a tough body, it seems his soul defense isn't that great, far weaker than that genius Elder. For you to kill him, Elder Below, he should feel honored. Below, as a member of the Ashcroft clan, was a soul attack specialist to begin with. At the same time, his body was also extremely powerful. Anyone capable of being in the top 3 of one of the great clans was a person of terrifying power. That year, when Below had battled with the genius Elder, Blue, neither had been able to kill the other. If Linley and Emmanuel had known that this time, the enemies had sent out this many experts, and especially that Below was amongst them, they probably would have retreated long ago. But Linley and Emmanuel didn't know, so naturally, they continued to advance. Within that Black Panther-shaped metallic life form, Linley was currently drinking wine with the High God. It's been half a year. The 8 great clans really are inefficient. Linley sighed. Captain, the 8 great clans live at the borders of Indigo Prefecture. They are hundreds of millions of kilometers away from us. Even if they are efficient and fast, they'll still need half a year before making their way to us. If they are slow, it might even take them 1 or 2 years. That squad member said. Linley glanced at this squad member. This squad member was named Isidore Yesaduo. During the last attack, some members of Linley's Squad 13 had been lost. Although Shonda and the others still had divine clones, the power of those divine clones was insufficient, and so they retired from Bloodbath Gorge. Isidore was one of the replacements. Isidore, be careful during the battle. Linley laughed. When he had gone and informed Squad 13 that this time, he only needed to bring 1 person, Isidore had very excitedly convinced the others to allow himself to be the one to accompany Linley. I know, Captain. Isidore's eyes were gleaming. But Captain, although I have to protect myself, I need to kill our enemies as well. Over the past 10,000 years, I've been waiting for this day the entire time. The forces of the 8 great clan were merciless in their pursuit of us that year. When our 4 divine beasts clan was powerful, they all cowered before us, but now that our ancestors are dead, they begin attacking like wild dogs. Men, women, the elderly, the young, they'll wipe out any member of our 4 divine beasts clan. Isidore's heart was filled with anger and hate. Linley couldn't help but sigh. This hatred and enmity truly has become a great one. That year, each of the great clans had wildly pursued and attacked, all the way to Indigo Prefecture. This had been a very major event. When Linley had just arrived in Indigo Prefecture and been buying books, even that staff member had known that the Four Divine Beasts clan was engaging in a major battle within the dragon-shaped metallic life form. Everyone, be careful. The enemy can appear at any moment. Emmanuel said quietly. Remember, don't permit anyone to draw near our metallic life form. Anyone who draws near, be it demigod or god, will be executed. Last time, Linley had relied upon drawing close to the metallic life form before launching a sudden ambush, thus causing Emmanuel to be wary as well. Haha, nearby, Linley's death god golem began to laugh. The death god golem had Linley's consciousness within, and it could thus be considered one of Linley's clones, in a way. There's nothing funny about it, Elder Linley. You were able to hide your strength. Perhaps others can do the same. It's best to be cautious. Emmanuel said. Yes. It's best to be cautious. The death god golem spoke in Linley's voice. Right at this moment. Not good. The enemy arrived. Emmanuel's face changed, and he instantly collected this metallic life form. Immediately, the 11 of them and the death god golem were now hovering in mid-air. Linley, through the death god golem, was able to see everything clearly. On the ground below them, 20+ figures were charging up at high speed. So many. Emmanuel's face changed dramatically. Elder Linley. Emmanuel immediately urged. Hurry over. Don't worry. The death god golem said. Haha, child of the Azure Dragon clan, you can die now. Amidst the loud laughter, two tall, powerfully built green-eyebrowed men who looked similar charged up, wielding double-edged great swords in their hands. Behind them, 25 six-star fiends attacked as well. Emmanuel's face became ugly to behold. The difference in power was too great. Roar! Emmanuel let out a fierce roar, and his entire body became covered in draconic scales. Instantly, he entered dragon form, while at the same time, a white mist spread out from around his body, covering the entire area and making all sorts of illusions appear. We aren't weaker than you in the elemental laws of water. The Green Eyebrow brothers laughed loudly as they surrounded and attacked Emmanuel. Slash. Bang. The 25 six-star fiends of the 8 great clans attacked the 10 six-star fiends of the Azure Dragon clan. The difference in numbers was simply too great. The 6-star fiends wildly battled against each other, and exploding sounds thundered non-stop. The air trembled, blood splattered everywhere, and one figure after another fell from the skies. Bang! Emmanuel's right arm exploded, and he was knocked flying backwards. Die! An indistinct, freezing light flashed towards him. Right at this moment, Emmanuel suddenly opened his mouth. The strange thing was, behind him appeared an enormous coiling illusion of an azure dragon. The enormous azure dragon phantom was like the size of a mountain, and it stared at the 2 7-star fiends with its illusory eyes. Not good. The faces of the Green Eyebrow twins changed. Retreat. The two retreated towards different directions at the same time at high speed. But at the same time, an indistinct azure light rippled outwards through space as though it were water, and the ripples instantly struck the 2 Green Eyebrow brothers, and their bodies both trembled. Innate divine ability, Dragon Roar. Captain. The 6-star fiends of the 8 great clans saw that their captains were in danger. Raarg. All of them hurriedly charged towards Emmanuel. There was a difference between a 6-star fiend and a 7-star fiend, but when several 6-star fiends joined forces against a 7-star fiend, the 7-star fiend couldn't be complacent either. Emmanuel had no choice but to retreat, while at the same time, he cursed mentally, why hasn't Linley arrived yet? The Green Eyebrow brothers had retreated towards different directions, trying to put some distance between each other, so as to force the scope of the innate divine ability, Dragon Roar, to be wider, and thus lessen the power of the attack. At this moment, that larger, taller green-eyebrowed man laughed angrily. This innate divine ability really is powerful. And then, they charged over as well. But right at this moment, the green-eyebrowed man noticed one of his subordinates was frantically messaging him through divine sense, "Captain, careful." The green-eyebrowed man hurriedly turned to look. He saw a dragon-formed figure flying towards him at high speed, with a pair of dark golden eyes staring fixedly at him. What shocked this green-eyebrowed man was, the newcomer actually had fierce, sharp spikes on his back. "He is Linley." The green-eyebrowed man was immediately shocked to his senses. Linley's unique dragon form, after he had killed those two 7-star fiends, had been made known to the high-level members of the 8 great clans. "Flee!" The green-eyebrowed man immediately turned to flee. At this time, an earthen yellow light spread out, forming an enormous sphere of earthen yellow light. The green-eyebrowed 7-star fiend, just 100 meters away from Linley, was naturally trapped within that area, and a terrifying gravity was applied to his body. His speed slowed drastically. Arg! Knowing that he wouldn't be able to flee, the green-eyebrowed man turned and delivered a full-force sword blow towards Linley. An illusory, translucent sword shadow flew out of his great sword, shooting straight towards Linley. Linley didn't have any time to dodge, and he didn't try to dodge. He still charged straight towards that green-eyebrowed man. As that translucent sword shadow pierced into Linley's body, Linley also delivered a vicious, smashing fist blow against the head of the green-eyebrowed man. Bang! The head was shattered, and the divine spark flew out. "Big brother!" The distant, skinnier green-eyebrowed man, upon seeing this, couldn't help but call out in agony. On a distant mountaintop, Elder below, who hadn't been planning to get involved, couldn't help but raise his head and stare, his eyes gleaming. "So he is Linley. Humph. Those idiots from the Barbary clan. As soon as they meet someone with a tough body, they are useless." Elder below's lips trembled slightly. Instantly, an enormous phantom in the shape of a black serpent appeared behind Elder below. This enormous black serpent covered the entire mountain. Its body was so enormous as to be astonishing. A terrifying aura suddenly filled the skies. After having just killed a 7-star fiend, Linley, for some reason, felt a sense of fear in his heart. Linley turned to stare below him, and he saw Elder below staring at him coldly. The shadowy illusion of that enormous black serpent, in particular, caused Linley to unconsciously think about what he had seen last time. Not good. This is the innate divine ability, Soul Extinguisher. Linley's face changed dramatically. Last time, his subordinate had rescued him, but this time, there was nobody near him. Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 31, A Battle of Sovereigns' Mights. The speed of this innate divine ability, Soul Extinguisher, was simply too fast. On the ground, that balding elder below stared coldly as his lips moved slightly. Behind him hovered that enormous illusion of a black serpent, which only had a single, solitary red eye, and the eye was staring fixedly at Linley. A crack appeared in elder below's forehead, between his eyebrows, and a translucent light instantly slashed through the skies, piercing into the range of the Blackstone space, shooting directly into Linley's body. The speed was so fast that Linley wasn't able to dodge at all. The innate divine ability of the Ashcroft clan, Soul Extinguisher. Elder Linley. The surviving 6-star fiends of the Azure Dragon clan, upon seeing this, were all stunned. "Bastard!" The skinny, green-eyebrowed man ground his teeth as he stared at Linley, rage still burning in his heart. Just now, it had been Linley who had killed his older brother. "It's your luck that I wasn't able to kill you myself." From afar, as Emmanuel saw this, his eyes lit up. The Azure Dragon Ring. Emmanuel immediately flew towards Linley at high speed. Within the limitless space in Linley's mind, outside his sea of consciousness, there was that protective membrane of scales which was a soul-protecting sovereign artifact. This enormous membrane had a single tiny flaw, and that flaw was its weakness. On the surface of the soul sea. Beneath the seven-colored sword-shaped soul, a Linley dressed in a light green robe was standing. This was Linley's divine wind clone. When battling, Linley only brought out a single one of his divine clones. In the hands of his divine wind clone, there was a drop of azure water, water-type sovereign's might. Let's see if you can break through. If you can break through, then I'll be forced to use the sovereign's might. Linley had been prepared long ago. And he had his divine wind clone carry that drop of sovereign's might at all times. As for the divine wind clone, within the soul sea, it was standing right next to that sword-shaped soul. Once danger came, his divine wind clone would immediately activate the drop of sovereign's might and use it to protect the soul, as well as counterattack. Crunch. That translucent ray of light shot out at incomparable speed, as straight as an arrow, piercing forward, drilling down with vicious precision against that semi-translucent scaled membrane. It was so fast and so vicious, that it was definitely the most powerful attack that Linley had ever encountered. Crack! Like an egg striking a stone, the ray of light struck directly atop the scaled membrane, and then it completely shattered apart. This is the soul extinguisher. Linley was stunned. How come it didn't hurt me at all? Even that simple soul attack which Mosley had used was more dangerous to me than this innate divine ability. It seems as though this attack doesn't have any sentience at all. Indeed. Innate divine ability were very rigid, fixed types of attacks. For example, the God Eater ability could only be used to devour divine sparks. If it succeeded, it succeeded. If it failed, it failed. The soul extinguisher could only shoot forward, using raw, brute force to shatter anything that blocked in its path, then extinguished the enemy's soul. It was the same for Delin and Tarasi's innate divine abilities. The power was great, but the abilities were very rigid. Once these innate divine abilities were activated, they would consume quite a bit of spiritual energy. You couldn't use less spiritual energy if you wanted to. They were extremely rigid. For soul attacks, sentience actually didn't matter too much. This was because generally speaking, if a high god had a soul-protecting divine artifact, it would protect all parts of the soul. For example, Bibi. His soul-protecting divine artifact protected every part of his soul. There were no weak spots, and thus, sentience didn't matter. One simply had to use raw power to break through. That was enough. This was true for the soul extinguisher as well. Unfortunately, what Linley possessed was a damaged soul-protecting sovereign artifact. Aside from that flaw, the defensive strength of the other areas was exactly the same as a normal soul-protecting sovereign artifact. A high god, break through the defense of a soul-protecting sovereign artifact with his attack. In his dreams. Thus, this technique by a supreme expert, below, failed. Linley stood there in the boundless skies, in the center of a sphere of earthen yellow light that was 500 meters in diameter. On the ground, that balding, ancient elder below raised his head to stare at Linley. That originally cold, sinister expression of his gradually changed into astonishment. Swoosh! Emmanuel flew towards Linley at high speed, laughing mockingly in his heart. Those idiots! They killed Linley, but they didn't immediately go take the spoils of battle. But how could they know that Linley had a soul-protecting sovereign artifact? Emmanuel was exceedingly delighted with himself. Linley, now that you are dead, this belongs to me. Emmanuel was very smug, but as he entered the region of the Blackstone space, he couldn't help but be puzzled. Why hasn't Linley's Blackstone space collapsed? If a person died, his space should collapse. Emmanuel. A cold, emotionless voice rang out. Emmanuel was stunned. He turned to look, and saw Linley's dark golden eyes staring at him. Why have you come over? To help me out. Linley stared at Emmanuel, who had a look of astonishment on his face. Linley couldn't help but laugh coldly in his heart, This Emmanuel has never given up on acquiring my coiling dragon ring. Emmanuel immediately recovered from his shock. He couldn't help but laugh awkwardly. Elder Linley, you really are formidable. I saw that you were in a dangerous situation just now, Elder, and so I wanted to come help. But it seems, Elder, you don't need my assistance. I'll go deal with some other people. I'll hand that old fellow down below to you. I trust, Elder Linley, that you'll be able to easily deal with him. Emmanuel immediately flew away, retreating. Despicable fellow. Humph. Linley felt contempt in his heart, then turned to look at the bald fellow who had attacked him. Easily deal with him. It would seem that it won't be very easy to kill this old fellow. Linley could had a sense of danger. But Linley wasn't afraid either. He currently had 3 drops of Sovereign's Might, and his Divine Wind clone was right there in his sea of consciousness, ready to activate it at any moment. Ha ha. Ancient-sounding laughter rang out from the mouth of the old, bald figure below him. The wrinkles on his face contorted like serpents. Linley, it now seems that last time, when you killed Mosley and the other one, you were still hiding your power. Admirable, admirable. Linley stared at this old man, and as he did, one person's biographical data floated up to his mind. When in Bloodbath Gorge, the Azure Dragon clan had provided him with a very clear explanation of some of the particularly dangerous individuals of the 8 great clans. The danger these individuals posed was vastly greater than that of ordinary 7-star fiends. They were comparable to the clan's trump cards. The old man in front him was one of them. What Linley didn't know was that his accomplishments in the previous battle had brought him to the attention of the various great clans, and they too had put his information into their list of dangerous figures. If my guess is correct, you should be Elder Below of the Ashcroft clan. Linley said in a clear voice as he stood there, high up in the air in the middle of that enormous sphere, staring down at Below. Correct. Below smiled, but because his face was covered in wrinkles, this smile made him look all the more savage. You were able to resist my innate divine ability, which means your soul defense is truly quite formidable. But you intentionally pretended that it was your weak spot. Humph, admirable. That ancient voice echoed in the skies. However, today, I want to see how your physical defense is, in comparison to your genius Elder, Blue. The bald old man said, and then his entire body began to hiss as tiny, dense black scales appeared, covering his entire body. A fierce, slender serpentine tail emerged from behind him as well. The Ashcroft clan descended from a supreme divine beast of the netherworld, the Nether Serpent. Their strength was no less than that of the Azure Dragon clans. Linley. A furious bellow rang out, and a pale, ashen shadow tore through the skies, charging towards Linley. Linley turned and saw that a seemingly blurry white figure was coming towards him. It was a savage-faced, green-eyebrowed man. The man immediately charged into the Blackstone space, and as he did, Linley instantly changed the direction of the gravity. Made it go downwards. The skinny, green-eyebrowed man strove to resist that downwards pull, but his speed still slowed dramatically. Right at this moment, he heard a furious shout. Hails hey-ersi, leave Linley to me. You go kill the other one. The skinny, green-eyebrowed man turned to look at the already serpent-formed Below, then said in a hateful voice, Fine, Elder Below, I'll hand this Linley to you. You absolutely must kill him and avenge my elder brother. Don't worry. Bueller was completely confident. The skinny, green-eyebrowed man, Hales, glared hatefully at Linley, then with a cold snort turned and charged towards the distant Emmanuel. Emmanuel had been watching this entire time. When he saw that Hales went to attack Linley as well, his joy was indescribable. Who would have imagined that with but a single word from that bald old man, Hales had come to attack him instead? Mother ***, with a low curse, Emmanuel had no choice but to charge towards Hales. Linley stared up in front, at the freak located outside his blackstone space. Elder Below's entire body was densely covered by the tiny black scales of the nether serpent. Only his chest still had a patch of large violet scales. His slender serpentine tail quivered slightly, while in the center of Elder Below's forehead, a single red eye had appeared from a crack. So this is the transformation of the Nether Serpent clan. Linley was secretly astonished. In truth, Linley's dragon form was just as bizarre as Below's. He had multiple fierce spikes radiating out from his spine, while his elbows and knees had sharp spikes jutting out as well. Linley's entire body looked akin to a human-shaped weapon. Freak against freak. Linley, today, you absolutely will die. Elder Below said in his hoarse voice. Only, I want to see how long you can hold out for. Below, today, you too must die. I, too, want to see how long you can hold out. Linley said coldly. Linley had already made his plans in advance. First, he'd rely on his body to battle. If he wasn't able to hold out, then even if he had to sacrifice a drop of Sovereign's might, he had to kill this Below. An expert of this level was worth sacrificing a drop of Sovereign's might for. Bang! Elder Below suddenly shot forward, charging directly into the Blackstone space, and as he did, his speed couldn't help decline. In my Blackstone space, you will be at a great disadvantage. Linley charged towards Elder Below. But right at this moment, Linley discovered, to his astonishment, that Elder Below's entire body wriggled forward like a serpent, easily and agilely gliding forward. Even within the Blackstone space, although Elder Below's speed wasn't that fast, he was still incredibly agile. How is this possible? Linley was shocked. This was the first time a person within his Blackstone space had been affected so weakly. Haha, Elder Below laughed wildly, and suddenly, he transformed into a black shadow, piercing through the skies and charging directly towards Linley. Linley, astonished, released a backhand palm blow, carrying within it the profound truths of velocity as he smashed towards that black shadow. Two terrifying surges of energy collided. Whap! A sound that was so clear and sharp, it caused space itself crack apart. Spatial ripples spread out in every direction. While Linley himself was sent flying backwards from the vibrations of the clash. His already dragon-formed right hand was uncontrollably trembling, and the palm of his hand was filled with a heart-boring pain. Your body's strength really isn't bad. Elder Below snickered. Why the smugness? Linley gritted his teeth. In my Blackstone space, although the effect on you isn't great, it isn't small either. Linley flashed forward like a bolt of lightning, while Elder Below didn't show any weakness either, immediately moving forward to welcome him. Spiritual chaos. Linley instantly used his spiritual energy through the Blackstone to affect Elder Below, while at the same time, his twin fists struck out mercilessly. Although Elder Below was able to resist the spiritual chaos technique, he still was slightly distracted. Whap! Bam! Bang! Linley's fists, legs, and even his draconic tail struck viciously in succession against Elder Bueller. Linley discovered, to his astonishment, that Elder Below's body was very slippery. It felt as though only half of the power of his blows had been applied. Elder Bueller, with a somersault, flipped far away, then recovered in mid-air. He began to laugh from his rage. Your soul really is quite formidable. However, Elder Below's body actually began to lengthen, as though he was transforming into a serpent, becoming soft and boneless as his serpentine tail extended as well. Elder Below, normally just the height of an ordinary person, had now transformed into a serpentine shape that was dozens of meters long. Haha, suddenly, from afar, a wild burst of laughter erupted, and a surge of terrifying power blasted out. Even Linley and Elder Below, in the midst of their battle, couldn't help but be distracted and turn to look. You want to kill me? In your dreams. Emmanuel's entire body was encased in azure light, and every part of his body was emanating with that heart-shaking aura. As for that green-eyebrowed Hales, he was already dead, the shattered remnants of his corpse having already fallen to the ground. Emmanuel used his sovereign's might. Linley was shocked. Sovereign's might. Elder Below's face changed dramatically as well. Because the person who had used the sovereign's might, belonged to the enemy. Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 32, wanting to steal a chicken, instead losing the bait. Wonderful. Linley rejoiced. Although Emmanuel and I have some conflicts between us, we are of the same clan, after all. Emmanuel, upon having used his sovereign's might, had gained tremendous power. As for the enemy, the two green eyebrow brothers had both died, leaving behind only Elder Below. It was easy to see who held the advantage. Elder Below suddenly let out a savage growl, and the eye in the center of his forehead turned so red, it seemed as though it was about to drip blood. Suddenly, he swiped out with his arm, and that soft, boneless arm actually elongated, slashing through the air and clawing towards Linley. The space which the arm danced through began to tremble. Swish! A devilish violet light flashed. Where the devilish sword light flashed past, space split apart, revealing tears. Blood violet chopped directly against that black scaled covered arm. Hiss! An ear-piercing sound suddenly came from long, slender arm. The scales split open, and blood violet plunged into the flesh. However, it wasn't able to cut any deeper, as the flesh was incomparably tough. Arg! Linley, with a savage right fist, swung directly at that long arm, but with a bang sound, the arm actually twisted, clawing towards Linley's elbow. Linley wasn't able to dodge in time at all. Elder Below managed to seize his right arm. Elder Below's fingernails suddenly turned black, and as sharp as daggers. At the same time, Elder Below suddenly applied pressure through his left arm, using those sharp fingernails to try and pierce into Linley's right arm. Linley let out a low growl, and the muscles on his right arm instantly bulged. Ah! Linley kicked out mightily, smashing directly towards that long arm. Bang! When the tip of his foot connected with the flesh on that long arm, it was like having kicked a wad of cotton. Elder Below's arm trembled slightly, but he had actually managed to deflect Linley's attack. Swoosh! Elder Below borrowed the counter force to come charging closer, and as he did, this giant that was tens of meters long came hurtling towards Linley. A bloody aura was throwing itself towards Linley at the same time as well. This Elder Below's defense is not only powerful, it is also as slippery and soft as a serpent. How odd! Linley began to sense how hard to deal with this person was. This Nether Serpent clan, capable of stalemating the Azure Dragon clan, really did have its own unique abilities. Emmanuel, hurry up and join up with me to kill him. Linley hurriedly sent through divine sense. After having used a drop of Sovereign's might, Emmanuel was now extremely powerful. But Linley discovered, to his amazement, that Emmanuel was pretending to have heard nothing, and was instead chasing after and pursuing those fleeing enemy 6-star fiends. Join forces with you. Emmanuel laughed coldly in his heart. In your dreams. I'll first let that Below kill you, and then I'll take that Azure Dragon ring. Although you have clones, and I won't be able to bind it with blood right away, but, your remaining divine clones are so weak. How will you fight against me? It was only because Linley was powerful that he was able to maintain ownership of the Coiling Dragon Ring. As Emmanuel saw it, if Linley's most powerful divine clone was destroyed, how could Linley continue to keep the Azure Dragon Ring? Bastard! Linley cursed in his heart. He was cursing both Emmanuel as well as this Elder Below who was right in front of him. In a physical close combat, Elder Below occasionally hit hard and occasionally was soft and slippery, causing Linley to be at complete disadvantage. Bang! The two separated once again. This Linley really is tough to deal with. Elder Below felt a headache coming as well. Just based on close quarters combat, he was stronger than Linley. But, in that Blackstone space, he was at a disadvantage to begin with. In addition, Linley would constantly, randomly change the direction of the gravity, sometimes upwards, sometimes downwards, sometimes towards Linley, sometimes away from Linley. The bizarre changes of the gravity's direction caused Elder Below a headache, causing him to be unable to have any advantage at all. "Emmanuel, come over and kill him together with me," Linley called out loudly. "Emmanuel." Elder Below was shocked. Emmanuel couldn't help but turn over. Just now, when Linley had used divine sense, Emmanuel could pretend that he didn't hear. But now that Linley was shouting so loudly, even the surviving 6 star fiends of the clan heard the call. Naturally, those distant, spectating intelligence agents probably heard the call as well. If he still didn't act, then if Linley were to die, when the intelligence agents made their report, Emmanuel would be in trouble. This Below is such an idiot. Emmanuel cursed to himself. Shouting was something that required time. During a furious battle such as this, Linley didn't have any chance to shout at all. If Below was able to seize an advantage and to hold Linley down while beating upon him or just kill Linley, then Emmanuel's plot would have succeeded. But now that Linley and Below were battling to a virtual standstill, Linley naturally had the chance to shout out loudly. "All right, Linley, let's kill him together." Emmanuel intentionally shouted back loudly as well. These words frightened Below so much, he immediately went to his last resort, using Sovereign's might. "You want to kill me?" Ha ha, the ancient-sounding laughter shook the heavens, and Elder Below's body once more returned to his normal size. At the same time, his entire body became covered with a layer of a black glow, which at the same time also emanating a terrifying aura, completely comparable to Emmanuel. He also used Sovereign's might. Linley was shocked. "The Elder said that the advantage our 4 Divine Beasts clan has is that we have some more Sovereign's might. I didn't expect that this Below has Sovereign's might as well. Terrible." The ancestors of the 4 Divine Beasts clan were sovereigns. Naturally, they had an excess of Sovereign's might, giving virtually every single one of their elders a drop. As for the ancestors of the 8 great clans, they weren't that formidable. Sovereign's might was extremely rare, and only the most supreme of elders would be in possession of a drop. And thus, Below had one. "Emmanuel, hurry over," Linley sent through divine sense, shouting frantically. Emmanuel just stood there in mid-air, not in a hurry to charge over at all. Linley instantly understood. This Emmanuel, actually has this sort of plot. Emmanuel laughed coldly in his heart. He used Sovereign's might? Excellent. Then first kill Linley. Linley. A low growl, an elder below charged directly towards Linley. Linley's face changed. Rumble, the direction of the gravity of the Blackstone space suddenly changed, transforming into a repulsive force. The powerful repulsive energy forced Elder below outwards. However, the power of Sovereign's might was simply too great. Even when trapped within the Blackstone space, Elder below was still able to forcibly resist that repulsive force, and his speed was still very fast. He wildly chased after Linley, who turned and ran directly towards Emmanuel. "If you won't come to me, I'll go to you," Linley said to himself. In an instant, Linley charged over to him. "Humph. I might as well kill you first, actually." Elder below, seeing the nearby Emmanuel, could sense the aura of Sovereign's might emanating from him, and thus he immediately turned to attack Emmanuel instead. After all, Emmanuel was more of a threat to him. Linley couldn't be bothered to care about Emmanuel. This below is too powerful. When trapped in the Blackstone space, he was still able to fight me to a draw. As for his soul attacks, it's only because he used his innate divine ability that he became deceived into thinking my soul defense is strong. Once he begins to use soul attacks, I definitely won't be a match for him. This misunderstanding had caused Elder Below to not use any soul attacks at all. But Linley could tell that even if he used Sovereign's Might, he still probably wouldn't be able to overcome Below. After all, in a normal situation, he was weaker than Below. If the two of them were both to use Sovereign's Might, the ratio of power between the two of them wouldn't change. Flee. Linley directly fled towards the north. Bang. A terrifying explosive sound rang out. The battle between two experts who had both used Sovereign's Might was fierce and terrifying. Whoosh. Linley flew at high speed, while at the same time, he could sense the terrifying explosive vibrations from behind. This is too high profile. Linley was secretly shocked. If he was able to defeat the opponent by using Sovereign's Might, Linley definitely would use it. But since he knew he wouldn't be able to win, it was best to flee. Whoosh. Whoosh. Two figures, one after the other, actually suddenly appeared in the skies above him. At the same time, a voice entered Linley's mind. Linley, hurry up and use your Sovereign's Might. The two of us can join forces and kill him together. Linley raised his head to look. He saw, in mid-air, an azure ball of light fleeing for his life, with a black ball of life in pursuit. Linley. The azure ball of light suddenly turned, flying over to Linley once more. Linley was now in the same situation that Emmanuel had been in. He didn't want to help Emmanuel, but Emmanuel was now running towards him, forcing him to intervene. Linley, if you still refuse to act, once my divine water clone dies, I will definitely go tell the Grand Elder of this. Definitely. Emmanuel sent to Linley frantically through his divine sense. A drop of Sovereign's Might contained an astonishing amount of energy. After all, it was liquefied sovereign power. Generally speaking, in a battle, it could only last for a while. But Emmanuel had used his Sovereign's Might earlier on, and it was quite some time ago. Once the energy of the Sovereign's Might was used up, he would definitely die. Hurry up, Linley. Emmanuel called out frantically. Bang. The azure ball of light once more exchanged blows viciously with that black ball of light, and the azure ball of light was actually sent smashing down towards the ground. Emmanuel clearly was at a disadvantage. Hey, what an exciting battle, eh? A carefree voice suddenly shook the skies, entering the ears of these three. Unconsciously, Emmanuel, Elder Below, and Linley all turned to stare towards the source of that voice. A muscular man, 3 meters tall, dressed in fiery red armor, with long, scarlet red hair fluttering freely in the breeze. His tiger-like eyes swept the area, and a smile was on his face. Oh, Linley. The muscular man laughed as he looked towards Linley. Long time no see. I heard that you became an elder of the Four Divine Beasts clan. Haha, it seems as though it's been less than 1,000 years since we parted, but you've become so strong. Linley stared at this person. He was stunned for a long moment, then finally, Linley said, Fusro. Haha, you still remember me. Fusro began to laugh loudly. This man in front of him, amazingly enough, was that volcano titan. That person who had been subject to a master-servant bond, and so had been forced to transform into a small kitten and endure countless years of servitude and humiliation. That supreme expert, Fusro. Even a 7-star fiend, in front of Fusro, could only choose to flee. Swoosh. The azure ball of light scurried towards Linley's side. Linley turned to look towards Emmanuel, only to see the azure light covering Emmanuel's body grow weaker and weaker, then completely vanish. My Sovereign's Might is all used up. Emmanuel stared at him. It's up to you, now. But Elder Below, his entire body still covered with that black aura, was hovering not too far away. Used up your Sovereign's Might? Haha, the two of you can die now. As he spoke, he transformed into a ray of black light, shooting directly towards Linley. Bang. A ray of fiery light collided with the black light, and the black light was actually sent flying backwards. Fusro stretched out his arm, retrieving that fiery, giant red awl. Elder Below stood there in mid-air, staring at Fusro in shock. You, just now, Fusro's awl blow had smashed him backwards. Even an Azura couldn't so easily send him flying backwards after he, Below, had used Sovereign's might. Hey, what's going on here? Fusro frowned, staring at him. Who are you? Elder Below growled softly. That's none of your business. This Linley is my friend. You want to kill him, Fusro grinned. After getting this weapon of mine, it hasn't really killed any supreme experts yet. The fiery red awl in Fusro's hand was more than 2 meters long. Sharp at one end, blunt at the other. It was like a massive bull's horn. Linley just watched all this happen in disbelief. Fusro was powerful, true, but, Below had used Sovereign's might. Currently, even if an Azura came, the Azura probably wouldn't be able to so effortless force him to retreat. Linley, who is he? Emmanuel was tongue-tied as well. A friend of mine. This was the only answer Linley could give. At the same time, Linley was puzzled. Fusro's weapon, in the past, had been a massive axe. Since when did it become this fiery red awl? This awl seemed to be quite extraordinary. Then you are looking for death. Elder Below bellowed furious. A long black whip appeared in his hand, and the long black whip, filled with sovereign power, lashed out directly towards Fusro. Where the long whip passed, space itself split open. But Fusro just grabbed his giant awl, then gave it a toss. Like a dagger being thrown, the big, fiery red awl transformed into a ray of fiery light, soaring outwards. With a bang sound, the black whip actually shattered. At the same time, a large hole appeared in Elder Below's chest. The fiery red awl flew back into Fusro's hand. Are you still refusing to F***ck off? I injured you this time, but next time, I'm going to kill you. Fusro said, holding that giant, fiery awl. That's... Elder Below stared in disbelief at that red awl. A sovereign artifact. Haha, not bad. Good eye. Fusro laughed smugly. Sovereign's might, to a sovereign, was a commonplace thing. But a sovereign artifact, that was something which a sovereign had to spend countless amounts of time, effort, and sovereign power to nurture and develop. The power of a sovereign artifact vastly exceeded sovereign's might. In particular, weapon-type sovereign artifacts. Using them to kill high gods would result in an utter massacre. Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 33, Below, unwilling to give up. Given how the situation had developed, in his heart, Below was filled with unwillingness to accept this outcome. Hales and his brother both died. On this assault, our side lost a pair of 7-star fiends, but not a single one of the 7-star fiends of the 4 Divine Beasts clan perished. And I even used up a drop of Sovereign's might. Humiliation. Once the results of this battle became widely known, this would definitely result in the other members of the clan looking down at him, and the patriarch would definitely be unhappy as well. But this person has a sovereign artifact. Below looked towards Fusro. Although his heart was filled with rage, he could only choose to submit. After all, resisting meant death. There was no question about this. Based on your transformation, you should be from the Netherworld's Ashcroft clan. Fusro stared down from up above, then said casually, when you go back, convey some words back to your patriarch. Just say that this time, I'm giving your patriarch face and so I'm not killing you. But if next time, you guys still dare to do anything to my friend Linley, then haha, well, you can go imagine what the repercussions will be. Just remember, the only thing that matters is that you don't do anything to Linley. As for the others, I don't give a damn. Below's heart trembled. As for Emmanuel, his face turned ugly to behold. He glanced sideways at Fusro. This big fellow seems to have some sort of friendship with Linley, rather than some sort of friendship with my clan. Fusro's words made it very clear. He wouldn't get involved in the battle between the 8 great clans and the 4 divine beasts clan. Linley's heart was filled with questions. Fusro and I, in actuality, the only time we met and chatted was that time when he escaped. In truth, the relationship between us isn't that deep. For my sake, he would be willing to turn his face in opposition against the 8 great clans. Linley didn't understand. Could it be that he was just that charismatic? It was easy to understand why Fusro would save him, but threaten the enemy's patriarch? This was very hard to understand. Right. I will definitely convey your words. Bilow's heart still held rage within it, but on the surface, he still lowered his head in submission. At present, Bilow had already completely reverted back to his human form, and even the 2 serpents hanging from his ears didn't dare to hiss. Well, *ck off, then. Fusro waved his hand. Bilow immediately transformed into a ray of light, moving towards the depths of the mountain forests, then disappearing. After flying 20 or 30 kilometers, Bilow landed to the ground. His wrinkle-covered face began to twist and contort with rage, and his pair of viperous eyes became filled with a sinister light. Am I supposed to go back? Say that I failed to kill a single 7-star fiend, but that 2 of ours died. Bilow was livid. It wasn't a major issue if any of the other elders of the clan failed in a mission. But, he was Bilow. A trump card level figure within the clan. For him to meet with a result such as this on a mission, the other members of the 8 great clans would definitely discuss this behind his back. He couldn't accept being embarrassed like this. When one possessed unlimited lifespan such as these supreme experts, one would care deeply about their face. No. That Fusro is very possibly going to leave. Once he leaves, I can absolutely intercept them and kill them en route. Bilow's eyes lit up. Even though he didn't dare to kill Linley, he still dared to kill Emmanuel. Whoosh! His sovereign's might turned transparent, and immediately spread out to a distance of tens of kilometers, encapsulating Fusro, Linley, and Emmanuel, the 3 of whom were still engaging in conversation. Sovereign's might could be used for material attacks and could also be used for spiritual attacks. Using divine sense to investigate, in turn, was in reality just spreading out one's spiritual energy. This sovereign's might, since capable of being transforming into spiritual attacks and spiritual barriers, naturally was also capable of being used for divine sense scouting, and the effectiveness of it was very great. Even the distance and area at which it could be used was greatly expanded. But of course, how could an ordinary supreme expert possibly be willing to use up Sovereign's might for divine sense scouting? The effect of using Sovereign's might to do scouting was akin to a sovereign himself scouting. Naturally, Fusro, Linley, and Emmanuel didn't notice it at all. Hey, little fella, you can go back now. Fusro gestured disdainfully towards Emmanuel. It's been a long time since Linley and I met, and there's some things we have to say to each other. Hurry on back. What, do you want to eavesdrop on our conversation, kid? Emmanuel didn't dare to say anything. Linley, I'll head back for now, then. Emmanuel smiled towards Linley while also making a respectful, fractional bow towards Fusro. But Fusro simply snorted, causing Emmanuel to be rather embarrassed. Elder Emmanuel, have a safe trip. Linley laughed calmly. Elder Linley, you'll be going back by yourself. You need to be careful of the enemy as well. Emmanuel said, seemingly in a very friendly way. And then, Emmanuel immediately flew away. Traveling by himself. Below, who was using his sovereign's might to watch this, couldn't help but reveal a smile on his ancient, withered face. And then, his muddy yellow eyes narrowed. I need to hurry. My sovereign's might has almost been used up. I need to seize this bit of remaining time to kill that fellow named Emmanuel. Bilo immediately transformed into a ray of light, flying in pursuit. A drop of sovereign's might in liquid form could be used for a fairly long period of time. Even if Bilo didn't use the sovereign's might, he would be able to easily kill Emmanuel. Given that he had in fact used it, at present, Emmanuel had no ability to fight back at all. Emmanuel traveled back by himself towards the direction of the four divine beasts clan, his face extremely sinister and gloomy. This time, he had wanted to let Linley's strongest clone be killed. That goal had become a failure. But that was secondary. More importantly, he not only hadn't had any gains, he had even used up a drop of sovereign's might. A drop of sovereign's might, I only had one drop. Emmanuel felt great unhappiness in his heart. If one had to use up sovereign's might, one had to at least have some gains to show for it. But what had he gained? The ancestors are dead. The clan's stockpile of sovereign's might has continuously dwindled, and is in fact personally overseen by the patriarch. The patriarch has always been biased against me, how can he possibly give me another drop of sovereign's might? While flying back, Emmanuel continued to consider what to do. It's all Linley's fault. He didn't use his sovereign's might to join forces with me in killing that Bilo. If we killed Bilo, the patriarch definitely would have bestowed another sovereign's might upon me for rendering such a great merit. Emmanuel's heart remained filled with discontent. But right at this moment, Emmanuel suddenly felt his heart clench in fear. He couldn't help to turn and look, and as he did, a black bolt of lightning seemed to strike towards him. The terrifying aura which emanated from that black flash caused Emmanuel's face to change, instantly turning white. Sovereign's might. Emmanuel's eyes turned round and huge. Bang! Emmanuel's entire body was blown apart, and his divine spark fell down. At this moment, a figure appeared in mid-air. Bald. Ancient. The figure was Elder Bilo. Humph. At least I've killed a 7-star fiend. When I go back, I'll be able to defend myself. Elder Bilo had been very unwilling to accept this outcome, but after killing Emmanuel, he immediately felt much better. When he went back to make the report, he could completely explain that the reason why Linley didn't die was because of that Fusro. He himself didn't have the ability to do anything about it. But at least he had killed the other 7-star fiend. Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, Elder Bilo collected the interspatial ring, then let out a low snort. So he really did have a divine clone staying in the Skirite Mountains. This ring is pointless to me, then. Applying a bit of force to it, he made the interspatial ring shatter. As for that divine spark hovering in front of him, Elder Bilo couldn't even be bothered to grab it. He didn't care about such a thing. Elder Bilo lowered his head to look at himself. The black aura surrounding him had almost vanished. Better leave. Elder Bilo seized the remaining moments to immediately fly towards the east, vanishing. And, just moments after Elder Bilo left, two figures pierced through the skies and appeared here. It was Linley and Fusro. Linley lowered his head, looking down carefully at the ground. He had been chatting idly with Fusro, but suddenly, he had sensed an astonishing energy ripple, and so he had immediately hurried over. The remnants of Emmanuel's shattered corpse were still on the ground, and his divine spark and divine artifacts were hovering there as well. I still came late. Linley said. Emmanuel's already dead. With a flip of his hand, Linley collected the divine spark and the divine artifact. If he died, he died. What's the big deal? Fusro said disdainfully. Linley couldn't help but laugh. Died. Linley didn't feel the slightest bit of grief for Emmanuel's death. Earlier, at that dangerous moment, Emmanuel had intentionally pretended that he didn't hear Linley's divine sense. He hadn't helped, hoping to use Bilo to kill Linley. However, with him dead, I'll have quite a few difficulties once I return. Linley frowned. Emmanuel, in the clan, was connected to quite a few people. Humph. We'll wait and see. It was Below who killed him, after all. Upon sensing the aura of Sovereign's might from this place, Linley was able to guess that this was Below's doing. Hey, Fusro. You weren't finished speaking just now. Linley turned to look at Fusro and laughed as he spoke. Oh. Right. That year, when I arrived at the Muja continent, I acquired my sovereign artifact. As Fusro spoke, he began to laugh so happily that his eyes half closed. Clearly, he felt quite delighted. Muja continent? Linley knew that this was one of the 5 continents of the infernal realm. Linley, have you ever seen a sovereign? Fusro said in an intentionally mysterious manner. Linley shook his head. No. I've only seen a scryer recording of a sovereign. However, all I saw was an enormous blurry face formed from energy. That's just an illusion the sovereign generated. It isn't the sovereign's true body. Fusro said smugly. Linley, there's something you don't know. When I arrived at the Muja continent, I met a supreme expert and engaged in a competition with him. Competition? Linley was stunned. Whatever we competed in, I lost. Fusro said resignedly. We competed in material attacks. I lost. We competed in spiritual attacks. I still lost. We competed in speed. I lost, even when we competed in the aspect I am proudest in, my physical strength, I still lost. You lost in everything. Linley was shocked. At the same time, he couldn't help but guess what the truth was. Only later did I discover. Fusro laughed. He was a sovereign. Although Linley had guessed this, upon hearing this, he was still shocked. After a moment, he laughed loudly. Ha ha, Fusro, you actually competed against a sovereign? Ha ha. How was I supposed to know that he was a sovereign? He hid his true power. I only took him to be another high god. Fusro said resignedly. He didn't reveal off any of his majestic sovereign's presence, only at the end, when he asked if I was willing to be his emissary or not, did he show off his majestic sovereign's presence. Only then did I realize he was a sovereign. A sovereign of what element? Linley asked. A fire-type sovereign. Fusro laughed. I am a fire-type expert. When I competed with him in attacks, we both competed in using fire-type attacks. Linley, I have the feeling that ever since I met you, my luck has been excellent. The first time I met you, I escaped from my countless years of bondage. And then, just a few centuries later, I became a sovereign's emissary. Fusro was quite delighted with himself. This is the sovereign artifact the sovereign bestowed upon me. My power was comparable to the infernal Azuras to begin with. Now that I have a sovereign artifact, haha, in the entire infernal realm, there are very few people capable of surpassing me. Very few who can surpass you. You mean to say, there's still some people stronger than you? Linley laughed. A few, I suppose. Fusro said. After all, in the infernal realm, there's a number of sovereigns' emissaries. There's also a few extremely rare divine beasts who have extremely powerful innate divine abilities, but actually, the most powerful of all are those high gods who have become paragons. Linley nodded as well. Paragons had completely mastered and completely fused all of the profound mysteries of one of the elemental laws. Fusing 5 profound mysteries and fusing all 6 profound mysteries to mastery, although it was only a difference of 1 profound mystery, the difference in power was tremendously great. I've been in the infernal realm for so long, but I haven't seen a single paragon yet. Linley laughed. Neither have I. Fusro shook his head helplessly. Based on what the sovereign said, these paragon-level high gods, although in terms of power are of course inferior to sovereigns, are actually even fewer in number than sovereigns. Linley agreed with this as well. I wonder, if one were to fuse all profound mysteries into one and become a paragon, the most invincible of high gods, what sort of power one would have. Linley sighed to himself. Linley, I have some things to attend to. I'll leave for now. Fusro laughed. As for your 4 divine beasts clan, don't just stupidly go battle for them non-stop. Protect yourself and improve your own power first. After speaking, Fusro flew away. Linley chuckled, watching Fusro leave. Time to go back. Linley lowered his head, glancing at Emmanuel's corpse on the ground, then flew towards the Skirite Mountains. Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 34, The 8 Great Patriarchs. Bloodbath Gorge. Whoosh. Emmanuel was currently flying at high speed through Bloodbath Gorge. The other warriors within Bloodbath Gorge couldn't help but stare, puzzled, as Emmanuel flew past at high speed. Isn't this that elder Emmanuel of the Azure Dragon clan? Why is he in such a rush? No idea. Must be something urgent. The warriors within Bloodbath Gorge all couldn't help but comment to themselves. Currently, Emmanuel couldn't be bothered with the idle chatter of others. A ball of fire was blazing in his heart, and fury had filled his mind. He charged directly to the residence of his father, Foreign. Smash. The door was pushed open. Foreign had been seated in his room, quietly drinking tea. He couldn't help but raise his head in amazement. Emmanuel, what are you doing here? Emmanuel didn't say anything. Turning, with a kriayak sound, he slammed the door shut. Bang. Emmanuel fell to his knees, his kneecaps smashing hard against the ground. Even the tough ground cracked apart from the force of it. Emmanuel, what are you? Foreign immediately stood up. Father. Emmanuel called out with grief and fury. What on earth has happened? Foreign had a bad feeling. My divine water clone died. It was because of that Linley. Because of him. Emmanuel said, his entire body trembling. It was all because of him. First, he intentionally refused to participate, and then, he parted ways with me. Your divine water clone died. Foreign's mind went momentarily blank. His son only had 2 bodies in total, one a divine water clone, the other a divine wind clone. The power of his divine wind clone was ordinary, and he hadn't been able to fuse any of the profound mysteries. His son wouldn't even have the chance to refine a water-type divine spark and recover his former level of power. What exactly happened? Explain clearly. Foreign said hurriedly. Yes, father. Emmanuel's face was covered in rage. Now that he had found someone to complain to, he immediately began to speak in detail. Only, once the words came out from Emmanuel's mouth, the story had changed. It seemed as though everything Linley had done, he had done to try and harm Emmanuel. The Azure Dragon Palace. The 5th floor. A side room. The Grand Elder was seated in the meditative position on a prayer mat, quietly training. Suddenly, the Grand Elder's forehead furrowed, and she opened her eyes. Why are the 2 of them here? The Grand Elder immediately stood up and walked towards the main hall. Grand Elder. Foreign's voice rang out. And then, Foreign and Emmanuel entered the main hall on the 5th floor. What are you doing, rushing in here like this? The Grand Elder shouted in a cold, unhappy voice. Grand Elder, Emmanuel's divine water clone died? Foreign said frantically. The Grand Elder was shocked. She couldn't help but look at Emmanuel. Emmanuel, didn't you and Linley go together to carry out this mission? Also, you and Linley both had a drop of Sovereign's might. Bang. Emmanuel knelt down heavily. Grand Elder, Linley, and I encountered 3 7-star fiends, all of whom were extremely strong. One of them was Elder Below of the Ashcroft clan. Emmanuel said hurriedly. The Grand Elder's face changed. It was actually him. Given his status, he should have had a drop of Sovereign's might. However, if you and Linley had both used your sovereign's might and joined forces, even if below used sovereign's might, the two of you, when joining forces, should have been able to escape with your lives. The Grand Elder said. That Linley just watched me die without helping. Emmanuel said hurriedly. When I was in danger, he didn't help out at all. Afterwards, an expert suddenly appeared and ordered that below to temporarily halt his attacks. That expert ordered below to leave, and so I thought that I was safe. Linley then said that he had something to discuss with that expert, and so I was to leave by myself first. I didn't suspect anything, and thus left by myself. But who would have imagined, Emmanuel was filled with both rage and grief. Grand Elder, just as I left, I was ambushed by that below again and killed by him. Grand Elder, it must have been arranged by Linley. He definitely must have secretly used his divine sense to speak with that below and told that below to ambush me. Otherwise, how could below have left, then returned to attack me? The Grand Elder, hearing this, frowned. For Linley to not assist earlier does show that he had the intention of harming you. However, as for below's later attack, there's no way to be certain as to whether or not Linley used his divine sense to collude with below. The Grand Elder said in a low voice. Although Linley didn't assist you, you didn't die, after all. Your death was caused by below's attack. It can't be counted as being caused by Linley. Grand Elder. Emmanuel was frantic. Although the Grand Elder was his paternal grandmother, she was too obstinate and unfeeling. Even her son, Foreign, had to address her as Grand Elder. Grand Elder, think about it. If Linley didn't have the intention of killing Emmanuel, how could Emmanuel's divine water clone have died? Foreign said frantically. Why wouldn't he return alongside Emmanuel? Why would he insist on them taking separate paths? Even if he wanted to speak in private, couldn't he just have Emmanuel wait off to one side? Also, that below, having been ordered off by that mysterious expert, why would he dare return and attack? He definitely colluded with Linley. Foreign said frantically. But they all forgot about something. Below, after having used Sovereign's might, was able to use a Sovereign's power for scouting. Grand Elder. Foreign said frantically. The Grand Elder couldn't help but look towards Emmanuel. Bang. Foreign suddenly knelt down as well. Frantically, he said, Mother. The Grand Elder's body trembled. Ever since she ordered Foreign to address her as Grand Elder, it had been many years since her son had addressed her as Mother again. Mother, Emmanuel is my only son. His divine water clone is now dead. For his divine wind clone to grow in power will be difficult, even after the passage of countless years. Mother, the future of your grandson has been shattered by that Linley. How can you, not even a little? As he spoke, Foreign began to shed tears. The Grand Elder felt her heart clench. If she wanted to penalize Linley, just by being slightly partial, she could indeed penalize him. Mother. Foreign said frantically. The Grand Elder looked at the two men kneeling in front of her. One was her son, and the other was her grandson. The Grand Elder took a deep breath, then said softly, Child, rise. The Grand Elder rarely displayed her emotions, and within the clan, she always gave the impression of being callous and emotionless. However, she was still a mother. Deep within her soul, there was still a very soft place. She wasn't completely stone-hearted and unfeeling. Foreign and Emmanuel, hearing this, were overjoyed. Mother. Linley's divine clone is at the Skirite Mountains right now. We can interrogate him right away. Foreign said hurriedly. Our Azure Dragon clan should be unified and work together, but Linley actually dares to act in such a way. Even if we don't execute him, we have to punish him heavily. Right. Punish him heavily. Emmanuel said hurriedly. In addition, by what right does he, a junior, hold the Azure Dragon ring of the ancestor? The azure dragon ring should be in your possession, grandmother. Even if you don't need it, it should be given to father. The grand elder was silent. Mother, shall we send someone to summon Linley over? Foreign said hurriedly. Linley's original body and divine wind clone were currently in the battlegrounds outside, while his fire, water, and earth clones remained in the Skirite Mountains. They could be interrogated immediately. What's the rush? The Grand Elder glanced sideways at each of them. Even if I am to punish him, can it be that I am supposed to punish those clones? Linley's original body isn't even back yet. Foreign and Emmanuel both came to their senses. Right. We shouldn't interrogate him now. Otherwise, if we interrogate his clones, he might be so frightened that his original body flees. That won't be worth it. Emmanuel said hurriedly. As Emmanuel and Foreign saw it, the value of Linley's clones was far inferior to the value of his original body. After all, generally speaking, there were differences in power between the clones of an expert. The most important one was the one which mattered the most. Within the borders of Indigo Prefecture, a place where 4 of the 8 great clans were stationed. The leader of the Ashcroft clan, which had moved here from the Netherworld, was currently chatting with Below's divine water clone. After all, Below's divine death clone was still on the way back. Below, did you say he has a sovereign artifact? This patriarch's eyes were scarlet red, and his eyebrows appeared very devilish. His long black hair which glowed with a green light extended to his knees, and the 2 green serpents hanging from his ears were currently staring at Below. This person was the leader of the Ashcroft clan, and the ancestor of the Nether Serpent clan. The most powerful expert of the Nether Serpent clan. Yes, father. That fire-type sovereign artifact is very formidable. Below said respectfully. He also asked me to deliver a message to you. He said that he didn't kill me because he was giving you face, but if in the future, we dare touch Linley, then the repercussions, we can imagine them for ourselves. Humph, impudence. This patriarch let out a cold snort. His sovereign artifact is fire type. He should thus be the emissary of a sovereign of fire. The patriarch of the Nether Serpent clan considered this, then he couldn't help but bark, pay a visit to the Bullen clan with me. Yes, father. Immediately, the patriarch of the Nether Serpents led Below directly towards the nearby Bullen clan. The 4 Divine Beasts clan was led by the Azure Dragon clan, while the 8 Great Clans was a temporary alliance. Currently, the most powerful of the clans, the Bullen clan of the Celestial Realm, was their leader. The Bullen clan. The Radiant Palace. The Radiant Palace was over 100 meters tall, with multiple pillars that were emanating a soft white light supporting it. Currently, outside this palace, Below was there, standing alone in a respectful manner. As for within the palace, there were 8 figures seated. These 8 were the 8 patriarchs of the 8 great clans. To be more precise, 4 of them were the true bodies of the patriarchs, while the other 4 were the golem clones of the patriarchs of the other 4 clans, who were far away on the opposite end of the Indigo Prefecture. These golem clones were death god golems, and held a hint of consciousness within them. The reason they had death god golems here was so that they could discuss things in a group. Below was respectfully narrating what had occurred in this battle. After he finished speaking, he said formally, "That's all." The voices of the 8 great patriarchs could be heard from within, engaging in conversation. Rain Ales, your clan has always been in the infernal realm. You should be familiar with its experts. Have you heard of this Fusro? Fusro? I've never heard of a person in the infernal realm who went by this name. No matter what, if he has a weapon-type sovereign artifact, he is definitely a sovereign's emissary. So what if he is a sovereign's emissary? If he dares act wildly against our 8 great clans and really forces us, we can just kill him. As long as we aren't the first to attack, the sovereign behind him won't blame us. Below, hearing this, couldn't help but be secretly startled. However, Below also knew that of the 8 patriarchs of their 8 great clans, 7 of them were sovereign's emissaries, with the 8th not being a sovereign's emissary but still being in possession of a sovereign artifact. In fact, the 8th was actually the most powerful of them all. After all, the patriarchs of the 4 divine beasts clan also had sovereign's artifacts. Given that the 8 great clans to dare act against the 4 divine beasts clan, how could they not have sufficient power of their own? How long will it be before I, too, have a sovereign artifact? Below thought to himself. However, he understood that even if the 8 patriarchs didn't have sovereign artifacts, they were still incredibly strong. It was precisely because they were so strong that they were noticed and valued, and received sovereign artifacts. In Below's mind, the 8 patriarchs were high and lofty figures. Indeed, it was only natural for a sovereign's emissary to be far above other people. Don't rashly make new enemies. A somewhat hoarse voice rang out in a rebuke from within the palace. There's no need for us to fear that Fusro anyhow. Right now, I'm more suspicious about another person. Below. The voice came from within. Below immediately bowed. Let me ask you this. When you saw that Linley, you, too, believed him to be a god. You didn't sense any hint of a high god aura. The hoarse voice in the palace said. Yes. I couldn't sense a thing. I sent out my divine sense, but could only sense that he was a god. Below said. That hoarse voice rang out again. Right. I am very familiar with Below's power. Your Ashcroft clan specializes in the soul to begin with, while Below is one of the supreme members of your clan, and has reached a very high level of accomplishment with regards to the soul. The number of people in the entire infernal realm who could hide their strength and prevent Below from realizing it can be counted on one hand. Someone with this level of power shouldn't be weaker than me. If Linley really was this formidable, it would be simple for him to kill Below. But he didn't. And in fact, it was that Fusro who saved him. I have a suspicion. I suspect that this Linley really is just a god. The reason why his soul is so tough is that he has a soul-protecting sovereign artifact. The hoarse voice said. He really is just a god. Patriarch Bolin, don't jest like that. Someone immediately said. Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 35, A Tremendous Threat. That he really is a god. Below, hearing this from outside the hall, also felt that this was unbelievable. The voices of the 8 patriarchs continued to ring out from within the hall. I'm not joking. Think about it closely. Over the course of all these years, since when has anyone in the 4 Divine Beasts clan been capable of using this technique of aura hiding for launching sneak attacks? It has never happened. It wasn't that they didn't want to do it, it was that they weren't capable of it. That hoarse voice continued, my Bolin clan, the Ashcroft clan, and the Edric clan are all famous for our extremely high level of ability pertaining to the soul. To hide one's aura to a level where even we can't discover it, how many experts in the entire infernal realm can be capable of it? If Linley was at such a level, there is no way Below could have returned to us alive. The hoarse voice continued, thus, there's only a single explanation. Linley himself really is a god. Naturally, there's no way anyone would discover a high god aura coming from him. The other clan leaders weren't fools either. They had all been stunned by the astonishing strength Linley had displayed, so none of them had dared to pursue this line of thought. But now that Patriarch Bolin was pointing it out, as they carefully considered this line of reasoning, they felt they suddenly understood as well. All of the clan leaders were stunned. Linley is most likely a god. However, how can his attacks be so powerful? I hear that his gravitational space ability is so strong that most high gods are completely unable to resist it. Even 6 star fiends will have their souls affected, resulting in them being easily slaughtered. Right. In battle, Linley is not weaker than a 7 star fiend. An ancient voice rang out, then the only explanation is that this Linley's level of comprehension with regards to the profound mysteries of the laws is too powerful. I predict that he has already mastered and fused 5 of the profound mysteries of the laws of the earth. Otherwise, there's no way a god could have this level of power. The amount of power Linley had displayed was, indeed, at this level. But what they didn't know was that Linley had actually only fused 3 types. However, through the assistance of the black stone as well as the unique method of utilizing the law possessed by the violet amethyst beast, allowing his gravitational pull to become more than 100 times stronger, Linley's power naturally was comparable to someone who had fused 5 types of profound mysteries. A god who has fused 5 profound mysteries. All of the clan leaders in the hall were completely stunned. I expect that the reason this Linley hasn't become a high god is because he wants to fuse the mysteries, one step at a time. I imagine that he is currently slowly fusing the 6th profound mysteries. The day he becomes a high god will also be the very same day that he finishes completely fusing all 6 profound mysteries. The hoarse voice rang out. This Linley, I must admit, has tremendous willpower and tremendous ambition. The result of their discussion was, the 8 patriarchs were all stunned. After all, generally speaking, when experts trained, fusing the profound mysteries of a law was simply too hard. Thus, they all decided to become high gods as soon as possible, then slowly fuse the profound mysteries. A sharp voice rang out, he is only a god, and yet already possesses such astonishing power. If he reaches the high god level, and reaches the level of perfection in the laws, then he will be at the peak of his power. If one of the patriarchs of the 4 divine beasts clan is courageous enough to bestow a sovereign artifact upon him, then this person, with his sovereign artifact, could dominate us all. When a person reached perfect and became a paragon of a law, that person would have terrifying power. When matched with a sovereign artifact, that person could be said to be undefeatable by all aside from sovereigns. This Linley is actually this formidable. Below, still listening from outside the hall, was terrified as well. But it makes sense. If he, theoretically, is just a god, and yet is still capable of using such a terrifying gravitational space, he has to have fused at least 5 profound mysteries. He definitely is currently gaining insights on the 6th. Once he fuses them and becomes a paragon. The number of high god paragons was even lower than the number of sovereigns. Every single one of them was a glorious person of their generation, supreme amongst supreme experts. This Linley cannot be allowed to live. A low, rumbling voice shouted angrily. As we can now see, this Linley might break through at any moment and fuse 6 profound mysteries. By then, it would be perfectly normal for the patriarchs of the 4 divine beasts clan to be willing to give up one of their sovereign artifacts to him. By then, we will be doomed. If that really happens, even the sovereigns wouldn't be willing to help us. The 8 patriarchs were immediately filled with shock and rage. Sovereigns were lofty beings. The emissaries of the sovereigns were nothing more than their subjects, and sovereigns usually didn't care too much about the affairs of their emissaries. As long as an emissary was capable of carrying out the duties assigned, that was enough. But there was one type of person who was different. A high god paragon. Even sovereigns would be willing to lower themselves to solemnly ask a paragon to be an emissary. The patriarchs of the 8 great clans all felt their hearts clench slightly. Good heavens! They had never imagined that the 4 divine beasts clan, silently and soundlessly, would actually produce such an incredibly talented figure. If this was permitted to continue, the repercussions would be unthinkable. This Linley must be killed. A furious shout came from within the hall. The war between us and the 4 divine beasts clan cannot be permitted to continue like this. We must accelerate it. There's no need to pay any attention to that other sovereign's emissary. Our greatest threat right now is Linley. We have to seize the opportunity to execute him. No matter what the cost, no matter what sacrifices we must make, we must execute him. Originally, The 8 great clans hadn't truly spent much time thinking about Linley. Now that they did, they realized that he was a tremendous threat to them, a threat so great as to cause them to panic. After all, even throughout all 4 of the higher planes, the birth of every single supreme paragon was an event that would shake all the planes. The Skirite Mountains. Bloodbath Gorge. Emmanuel and Foreign were waiting at the Azure Dragon Palace. Right at this moment, a figure streaked past the skies, flying directly into the Bloodbath Gorge and landing in front of the Azure Dragon Palace. This man with long, unbound azure hair was the patriarch of the Azure Dragon clan, Gislason. The Grand Elder looked outside the window, puzzled. Emmanuel and Foreign immediately turned to look as well. Gislason strode in with a smile. "Little sister." "Patriarch." Emmanuel and Foreign immediately saluted. "You are here as well? Good. Then there's no need to send someone to find you." Gislason chortled as he walked to the throne, seating himself. He grinned towards the Grand Elder. "Little sister, do you know that in the battle Linley and Emmanuel engaged in, 2 7-star fiends of the other side died?" Gislason chortled as he looked at Emmanuel. "Emmanuel, I heard that afterwards, yet another 7-star fiends attacked you and Linley. Tell me about the results." The news Gislason had received had come from their intelligence agents. Because both sides had used Sovereign's might in that battle, the 3 6-star fiend survivors of the Azure Dragon clan had immediately scattered and fled. Below had pursued Emmanuel and had also chased towards Linley. Naturally, the 6-star fiends had fled in the opposite direction. And thus, only Linley, Emmanuel, Below, and that Fusro knew what had happened between them afterwards. "Patriarch." Emmanuel immediately knelt down, sobbing, "My divine water clone was destroyed. Our enemy was Below. I used a drop of Sovereign's might, but Linley didn't use his, nor did he help me. What's this all about?" Gislason couldn't help but frown. "Patriarch, back then, Linley and Emmanuel immediately began to retell the story in detail anew. However, he naturally changed some of the details in the words, making it sound as though Linley wanted to harm him. "What did you just say?" "A sovereign artifact," Gislason said, shocked. "Emmanuel, did you say a sovereign artifact?" The Grand Elder was shocked as well. Yes. Emmanuel was stunned. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" the Grand Elder said angrily. Prior to this, when Emmanuel had been telling this tale to the Grand Elder, he had only said that an expert had stopped Below. He didn't mention the sovereign artifact. Is that very important?" Emmanuel didn't understand. "What was his name?" Gislason asked hurriedly. Emmanuel still clearly remembered the conversation between Linley and Fusro. He immediately said, "That person was named Fusro." "Fusro?" The Grand Elder was somewhat puzzled. Gislason was momentarily stunned as well, but then he began to laugh. He immediately said, "Little sister, come, make a trip with me." "Yes, elder brother." The Grand Elder immediately followed him. Patriarch Gislason and the Grand Elder immediately left the Azure Dragon Palace, leaving Emmanuel and Foreign behind in the palace, completely confused. "Father, what's this all about?" Emmanuel said. "Could it be that the Patriarch knows that person?" Foreign didn't fully understand either. The Skirite Mountains. Within the gorge. Linley, Delia, and Bibi were currently together. Linley's original body was still on the way back, and so this was naturally just a clone Linley. As for Delia and Bibi, they had already gone and come back from the city of Mir. "Bibi, how did it feel, to go out on an excursion? From the looks of it, it seems as though you had quite a bit of fun." Linley laughed. "Of course I feel great after going out for a trip." Bibi rubbed his nose and laughed. "However, the reason I look so happy isn't because I went on a trip. Rather, boss, I've already mastered the fifth profound mystery of the laws of darkness. Linley was startled. Boss, you and I were competing, you know. How about you? BB asked smugly. Linley couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. I fell behind. I'm still trapped at the bottleneck for the profound mysteries of strength, and have yet to break through. Humph. BB laughed smugly. Look at the two of you. Delia covered her mouth, starting to laugh as well. You are even going to compete in this. You are like a pair of children. Well, we have nothing better to do. BB smirked in response. Linley laughed. Delia, BB, the two of you viewed Emmanuel with disfavor, yes. As Linley spoke, he set up his godrealm, completely sealing off sound from the outside. Right. I hate that guy. BB said hurriedly. Last time, he wanted to steal your coiling dragon ring. And he wants to kill you. Delia couldn't help but turn grave. Also, didn't you say that for this mission, he forced you into accompanying him? Linley began to laugh. You don't need to worry any longer. Even if he wants to kill me, he doesn't have the ability to do so. Delia, BB, it'd be hard for him to even kill the two of you. What's this? BB and Delia were both shocked. This time, on our mission, the one he wanted me to go on, the result was that he died. Linley laughed. His most powerful divine water clone was finished. The body that he has left is very weak. He's really dead? Woohoo! BB shouted out excitedly. You encountered a powerful foe? How about your clone? Are you all right? Delia asked hurriedly. Delia was worried each time Linley went out on a mission. After all, the war between the 4 Divine Beasts clan and the 8 Great Clans meant that during every single mission, the squads were dancing between the edges of life and death. Of course I'm fine. Linley laughed. Linley suddenly frowned, then turned and looked towards the skies. He saw that in mid-air, there were 4 figures flying over at high speed. Linley released his godrealm, and the 4 landed directly in front of Linley. Elder Linley. The 4 bowed as they spoke. What is it? Linley asked. The leader said respectfully. Elder Linley, we have come on the orders of the 4 clan leaders to summon you to the grand palace of the 4 divine beasts. The 4 clan leaders. Linley was stunned. He had been in the infernal realm for so long, but he had only met Patriarch Gislason of his own Azure Dragon clan. As for the other 3 clan leaders, he had never seen them before. Now, the 4 patriarchs were summoning him. Why? Elder Linley, please hurry. The 4 clan leaders are all waiting for you at the Grand Palace. The leader urged. Right. Linley nodded. Linley immediately turned towards Delia and BB, laughing as he nodded towards them. I need to make a trip. And then, he immediately flew into the air. Those 4 warriors followed directly behind Linley, as the 5 of them flew in a line towards Bloodbath Gorge. Moments later, Linley arrived at Bloodbath Gorge. He immediately saw the distant Azure Dragon Palace. It's actually the Grand Palace. I've never been to the Grand Palace before. Bloodbath Gorge had 5 palaces in total. The Grand Palace of the 4 Divine Beasts was the place where the clan leaders of the 4 Divine Beasts clan went to discuss major matters with each other. But today, the Grand Palace of the 4 Divine Beasts had especially opened its doors for Linley. The Grand Palace of the 4 Divine Beasts was more than 100 meters tall, and its 4 walls were filled with carvings of 4 different divine beasts. The entire Grand Palace was an extremely stately, solemn place. At the gate to the Grand Palace, there were warriors of Bloodbath Gorge standing guard. Elder Linley. The guard saluted respectfully. Linley laughed and nodded, then strode into the Grand Palace. Rumble, behind Linley, the gates to the Grand Palace shut themselves. Book 17, Indigo Prefecture, Chapter 36, Decision. Linley looked about carefully, but there wasn't a single person present in this main hall of the first floor of the Grand Palace of the Four Divine Beasts. "Linley, come to the second floor." A voice rang out in Linley's ears. "Patriarch." Linley recognized this voice as being Gislazen's, and he immediately entered a side room to the main hall, which had a staircase that led upwards into the second floor. Climbing up the staircase, Linley arrived at the second floor of the Grand Palace. The second floor was clearly much smaller than the main hall on the first floor. There was an enormous round table placed in the center of the hall, and there were a total of 6 figures seated around the table. Linley recognized only 2 of the 6 figures, one was the Patriarch, while the other was the Grand Elder. Judging from their clothes and their aura, the other woman seated around the table should be the matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan. Linley inspected them one by one. Azure Dragon clan. Vermilion Bird clan. White Tiger clan. Black Tortoise clan. All 4 clans, without question, had their own unique, bizarre auras and appearances. He could recognize them at a single glance. At the round table, the Azure Dragon clan had 2 representatives, the Black Tortoise clan had 2 representatives, and the White Tiger and Vermilion Bird clans also had 1 each. "Linley, sit." Suddenly, the beautiful woman from the Vermilion Bird clan laughed calmly. The others all revealed smiles towards Linley as well, and Gislazen laughed. "Linley, no need to stand on ceremony. When meeting with you here, we can be a bit more casual. Go ahead and sit." "Yes." Linley couldn't help but feel a warm feeling in his heart. Linley knew that these people were the highest level figures of the Four Divine Beasts clan, the sons and daughters of those 4 sovereigns. "Linley, the reason we asked you to come was to ask you regarding that Fusro," Gislazen said. "Fusro?" Linley was startled. So the clan had found out about the relationship between himself and Fusro so quickly. One of the men present wore a white robe, and on the white robe, there were some unusual patterns that made it look as though it was made from the fur of a tiger. This man had a grim, callous face, but he currently had a hint of a smile as well. "Fusro has a sovereign artifact, but we've never heard of him." Linley laughed to himself. Up until a few centuries ago, Fusro had been just a pitiable little kitten in Elkin's arms. Who would have known him? "Linley, this Fusro is a sovereign's emissary. There should be no mistaking this, right?" a large man said in a low, rumbling voice. This man's body was even taller than the members of the Barbary clan. Linley knew that this person had to be one of the 2 leaders of the Black Tortoise clan. "He is indeed a sovereign's emissary. He should have only become one a few centuries ago," Linley replied. Around the circular table, the leaders of the Four Divine Beasts clan all stared at each other, excitement in their eyes. "Which sovereign?" Gislazen asked hurriedly. "I'm not certain. However, it is a sovereign of fire," Linley said. The Grand Elder, by Gislazen's side, also asked hurriedly, "Linley, do you know why this Fusro saved you? Was it because the 2 of you have a relationship with each other, or because he was acting on the orders of the sovereign?" "Actually, I'm puzzled about this as well," Linley said. "Oh." The 6 looked at Linley, listening attentively. Although Linley didn't understand what the 6 were interested in with regards to this conversation, there were some things which didn't need to be kept secret and which he could reveal. "In truth, this Fusro and I have only met a single time. Although we can be considered friends, our relationship isn't that deep. I can understand why he saved me when he happened to be there, but he actually threatened Below and threatened Below's clan, saying that they were not permitted to act against me." Linley laughed. The 6 people around the table all frowned. "He has a pre-existing friendship with you." Gislazen was somewhat frustrated. It seems he wasn't acting on the orders of a sovereign to protect Linley. There isn't much of a connection between the sovereign and Linley. "Hard to say." The patriarch of the White Tiger clan rebutted. "Fusro threatened them. Perhaps. Enough. Don't have any extravagant hopes. The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan let out a long sigh. If the sovereign had the intention of protecting Linley, he would have sent someone directly to the 8 great clans and convey his decree. With the sovereign's decree, the 8 great clans definitely wouldn't dare to touch Linley. There's no need for him to go to as much trouble as this Fusro has. Clearly, Fusro's rescue of Linley didn't have much to do with the sovereign. Alas, Gislason couldn't help but lower his head and sigh. The looks on the faces of the others turned unhappy as well. Linley, seeing this, couldn't help but feel astonished. However, listening to their words, Linley began to understand. So they were actually hoping that I had some sort of a relationship with the sovereign. When Linley thought of the situation of his clan, he fully understood. Ever since those 4 ancestors of theirs had died, the 4 Divine Beasts clan had lacked a sovereign to rely on. Thus, even those 8 great clans dared to abuse them. They knew that a sovereign's emissary had rescued Linley, and so they had hoped that this sovereign's emissary had come on the sovereign's orders to rescue Linley. If that were the case, then it would also be possible that in the future, the sovereign might, for Linley's sake, help out the 4 Divine Beasts clan. Their hopes were just extinguished. Linley said to himself, "Forget it. Everyone, don't be discouraged. At least we have a sovereign's emissary as our ally now." The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan laughed calmly. In addition, it isn't completely impossible that the sovereign's emissary came on the orders of his sovereign. Linley looked at those 6 people around the round table, and he couldn't help but feel a surge of grief in his heart. How could the 4 Divine Beasts clan have fallen to such dire straits? These clan leaders were all pining for a sovereign to stand behind them. However, the 4 ancestors were all dead now. As for the other sovereigns, why would they be so bored as to go help the 4 Divine Beasts clan for no reason? Linley, I'd like to ask you something. Are you a god, or are you a high god? The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan laughed as she looked at Linley. To be honest, I can't detect any hint of a high god aura coming from you. Linley couldn't help but look at his patriarch. Quite a few people had already asked this question. Linley is a god. Gislason said hurriedly. This is a secret. It's enough that we know the secret. Do not spread it out. The people present were all the highest level members of the 4 Divine Beasts clan, so it didn't matter if they knew. Still just a god. Haha, how is it that you, a god, are able to kill 7 star fiends? The atmosphere of the room grew lively again as everyone began to discuss Linley. Linley, faced with the questions from these clan leaders, was only able to give some general answers. Gravitational space. The patriarch of the White Tiger clan said in amazement, his sword-shaped eyebrows rising. With a simple gravitational space, you are actually able to make it so that most high gods are unable to fly. A gravitational space was normally a very ordinary technique. Linley had only developed his own version, thanks to the intentional guidance provided by the juvenile amethyst beast. Gravitational space. Suddenly, the matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan let out a cry of shock, then stared at Linley, asking hurriedly, "Linley, are you capable of changing the direction of gravity within your gravitational space?" The astonishment of the matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan caused the other people present to be mystified. "Quick, tell me." The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird urged. Linley felt completely puzzled. This was a very simple thing. Why had the matriarch lost her cool like this? Right. Linley nodded and admitted it. Haha. The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan began to laugh with exceeding happiness. She looked at Linley. Linley, you should have learned your gravitational space technique from the Amethyst Mountains. Right. Linley was shocked. How did she know? Seeing the look of shock on Linley's face, the matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan began to laugh smugly again. Elder sister, hurry up and tell us what is making you so happy. The patriarch of the White Tiger clan urged, and the others looked towards her as well. The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird was all smiles as she responded. Everyone, there is no way that this unique gravitational space which Linley knows can be developed simply through training. When my mother was alive, she had once mentioned a sovereign of destruction to me. Sovereign of destruction. Everyone's eyes lit up. Linley stared at her as well. Right. The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan nodded. This sovereign of destruction had the innate ability to control and change the direction of gravity, and also exert control over a person's soul. This sovereign is extremely powerful, and my mother said that the sovereign of destruction was the sovereign of the Redbud continent. Everyone was stunned. Linley stared, slack-jawed. Aside from this sovereign of destruction, there shouldn't be anyone else capable of utilizing Linley's type of gravitational space. The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan said confidently. Oh, right. I also heard that the sovereign of destruction has a son. Aside from her and her son, no one else knows it. Linley was completely stupefied. Sovereign? Son. Many things flashed through Linley's mind, and many things he didn't understand were suddenly made clear. That juvenile amethyst beast, could he be the son of the sovereign? Immediately, the clan leaders of the 4 Divine Beasts clan stared towards Linley. They were like people who were drowning that had seen a stalk of straw they could clutch onto for survival. They were incomparably arrogant, and felt themselves to be the favored ones of the heavens. However, after their 4 sovereigns had fallen, they discovered that the 4 Divine Beasts clan had instantly fallen into dire straits, and could be wiped out at any moment. They were hoping that a sovereign would be willing to step forward and help them. But none ever had. Linley. Gislazen's face was covered with smiles. You know the Redbud sovereign? No, I don't know her. Linley shook his head. How could you not? The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan began to laugh. You learned your gravitational space technique from the Amethyst Mountains, right? Right. Linley nodded. That's right. The Amethyst Mountains is the place where the Redbud sovereign was born. That's her home. The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan sighed in amazement. The power of that sovereign is exceedingly strong. If she is willing to stand out and say but a single word, those 8 great clans will immediately be so terrified that they would flee. Linley still felt completely stunned. So the Amethyst Mountains was the resting place of a sovereign. My gravitational space was taught to me by a juvenile amethyst beast named Rice Gem. Linley said hurriedly. Rice Gem. The clan leaders all shook their head, indicating they hadn't heard the name before. I haven't heard of him either. The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan laughed. But from the sound of it, he's most likely that son of the sovereign. This Rice Gem is a commander of Purgatory. You don't recognize him? Linley was puzzled. A Purgatory commander. The 6 people around the table were all startled. A person who becomes a Purgatory commander does so to participate in the planar wars. Gislazen said. Our 4 Divine Beasts clan doesn't get involved in the planar wars, so we don't pay too much attention to it. In addition, Purgatory commanders often change. No one knows who is currently a commander. Linley nodded. Linley, you can go back for now. Gislazen laughed. Right. You can go back. From today onwards, you don't need to get involved in the matters of Bloodbath Gorge. Go back and train hard, and then, after you reach the high god level, we'll see. The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan laughed as well. Although Linley was still rather puzzled, he still bowed. Yes. And then, he left by himself. After Linley left. Ha ha, Gislazen began to laugh. Ha ha, immediately, everyone else began to laugh as well, their faces covered in smiles. The patriarch of the White Tiger clan sighed emotionally, it's been so many years. Our four divine beasts clan finally sees a ray of hope. Right? We finally have a ray of hope. Gislason sighed as well. Given the glorious former days of the four divine beasts clan, how could they be willing to forever hide within the Skirite mountains? Although the Lord Prefect of Indigo Prefecture had entered into an agreement with the 8 great clans, causing them to be forbidden from attacking within the Skirite mountains, all this meant was that the roots and foundation of their clan was protected. As for returning to their former glory, they had to have the support of either an invincible high god paragon, or that of a sovereign. The Redbud Sovereign. The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan laughed. Over the past 10,000 years, we haven't seen any signs of hope at all. But today, we finally do, given that the Redbud Sovereign was willing to pass his ultimate technique to Linley. The relationship between her and Linley has to be a deep one. Elder brother. The matriarch of the Vermilion Bird clan laughed as she looked at Gislason. You have to protect this Linley and take care of him. We need to rely on him to connect with the Redbud Sovereign. Don't worry. Gislason began to laugh as well. I guarantee that nothing will happen to Linley.